Chapter 1633. One time, 1.5 times, 2 times. Long Yu's strength density finally began to slowly rise. This process was completely due to the expansion of the small world's territory to 100 billion miles. Then, the small world's world energy had completely fused with his strength, bringing about a change. The reason why he needed to consolidate his cultivation was that the power of the small world could only be melted into his body after his cultivation was completely consolidated, thereby increasing his strength density by 10 times. The compression force from the power of the world completely squeezed the strength inside Long Yu's body together. As the strength density increased, the power that the strength could really burst out increased explosively. Basically, after stepping into the demigod level, it was more difficult for a practitioner to increase their basic strength. Instead, they had to train to increase the strength density. When they just stepped into the demigod level, the increase of strength density was brought by the power of the world. However, if they wanted to increase the strength density, they had to practice some special secret arts. Those secret arts were not easy to come by. Not everybody could practice any of them. The requirements were very strict. Therefore, the Saint Emperor, Red Oriole, and consort were still new demigods, and their strength density was only 10 times. It was very difficult to find a secret art that was suitable for them to increase their strength density. Of course, that was not what Long Yu should be thinking about right now. After all, after they stepped into the demigod level, there would often be special opportunities for them to find such secret arts, which are similar to the places in the eroding moon ancient domain. If they explored those places, it was possible for them to perceive the secret arts that were suitable for them. Those special places, on the other hand, were not open yet. Therefore, this batch of new demigods were still new demigods. It was basically impossible for them to increase their strength density, unless they had some other fortuitous encounters. Under such circumstances, the effect of the jade branding pattern in Long Yu's head was obvious. It was safe to say that the jade branding pattern was a great weapon for him to challenge people of a higher level. It also made Long Yu realize that in the battles in the future, strength density would be everything. Whether or not to open the ancient god brain region, as well as what kind of ancient god pattern and ancient god seal were in the ancient god brain region, would be the biggest factors that would affect the outcome of the battle. Even if Long Yu was mediocre in other aspects, just by relying on the J branding mark, he would be able to challenge experts whose strength density was 20 times higher when he had just stepped into the demigod realm, and such experts would basically be one of the strongest existences in a foreign race. Currently, among the human clan and the demon clan, there were only 2 people whose strength density had reached 20 times. And these 2 people, Long Yu had never seen them before. They were the true leaders of the demon clan and the human clan. Long Yu had just stepped into the demigod level, but he was already able to reduce his enemy's strength density by half in a battle, so that his enemy's strength density was equal to his own. Then, he could try to defeat his enemy through other methods. No new demigod had ever been able to do that. At this moment, as the density of Long Yu's energy continued to increase, the distortion of the space around him became more and more severe. The tens of thousands of sovereigns of the Black Crow Demon Tribe and the Blood Demon Tribe were all dumbfounded. What was this guy doing exactly? Even the advancement of other demigods wouldn't have happened to Long Yu. The main reason was that there was the 8th technique inside Long Yu's body, the Dark Abyss Ball. Under the influence of the transformation of the Dark Abyss Ball, the space around him had become twisted. When I step into the demigod level, I can even awaken a deified technique. The deified technique is actually the Dark Abyss Ball. Long Yu was quite surprised at this moment. He felt the same feeling when he killed an opponent in the chaotic battle on the 5th floor of the eroding moon ancient domain. A technique transforming into a deified technique was a very strange and unique feeling. He couldn't have been wrong about it. Therefore, he was sure that his Dark Abyss Ball had become a deified technique. Originally, he thought that it would be some other mystique like the Eye of Darkness that would become a deified mystique, but he didn't expect that the Sphere of Underworld would become a new deified mystique, which made him very happy. In his heart, the strongest mystique was undoubtedly the sphere of underworld. Now that the Dark Abyss Ball had become a deified technique, what kind of effect would it have? Long Yu didn't know. After all, the density of his strength was still increasing. It would take some time for him to truly break into the demigod level. It was also at this time that bad news suddenly came from the Saint Emperor, who was connected to Long Yu's mind. Long Yu clearly felt that the Holy Emperor, the other two women, and Gui, you seem to have run into very strong beings and were blocked on the other side of the space-time tunnel. They couldn't return for a while, and the space-time tunnel was about to disappear. If they couldn't return in time, it was very likely that the four of them would be trapped in the depths of the soul race's territory and slowly die of exhaustion. In fact, they didn't even need to expend any energy, because Long Yu sensed through the Saint Emperor that there were 3 demigods of the soul race, and one of them was one of the top 3 experts of the soul race, a super expert known as Soul King Tiangu, whose power density was 23 times higher than normal. The existence of Soul King Tiangu alone put a lot of pressure on Guiya and the other 3. The 4 of them might not be able to defeat him even if they worked together. Not to mention that Soul King Tiangu led 2 demigod experts whose strength density was 16 times and 17 times. The 3 demigod experts of the soul race appeared on their way back without warning and then launched an attack. It was obvious that they wanted to take this opportunity to kill the 4 of them. Guiya and the others didn't expect that Soul King Tiangu would appear to stop them. Even if there were 4 of them, they might not be able to return alive. You guys hold on. You must be careful and focus on defense. I'll be there soon. Long Yu gritted his teeth and reminded the Holy Emperor through the consciousness of the battle soldier. The Holy Emperor could also sense Long Yu's current state and knew that he was at the critical moment of a breakthrough. His strength density had already increased to about 5 times. Once Long Yu's strength density increased to 10 times, he would have a strength to fight against alien demigods whose strength density was 20 times. Moreover, the influence of the Jade branding mark could weaken Soul King Tiangu. If they worked together, they might be able to kill him completely. This was an opportunity that they couldn't miss. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had to hold on until Long Yu arrived. It would take about another 2 hours for Long Yu to complete his breakthrough, and this was under the effect of the sphere of 9 hells slowing down the flow of time. If it weren't for the fact that the flow of time was slowed down, Long Yu would need at least another 20 hours to complete the breakthrough. I have to be faster. At this time, Long Yu activated all the strength in his body and actively fused with the power of his world. In this way, he could save a bit of time, and it would be best if he could get there earlier. The other party's location was not very far from the exit of the space-time tunnel. As long as Long Yu left the space-time tunnel and used the Void Dragon Blade to travel through the void more than 10 times, he would be able to get there. The key now was that Long Yu had to make the breakthrough first. If he gave up halfway through the breakthrough, it could be said that all his previous efforts would be in vain. Not only would he not be able to reach 10 times the density of power, it would also be extremely difficult for him to step into the demigod level in the future. After all, a territory of 100 billion square kilometers was already the limit of the small world. It was even more difficult to expand further, and the power of the world had all been used to increase the density of power. Long Yu and the Holy Emperor were telepathically connected, and they could both know the state of the other. And now, the Ghost Crow demigod who had suggested to clean up the territory of the soul race was sweating profusely. He had completely turned into a pitch-black crow, and the shadow of a giant black bird flashed continuously behind him. A total of 5 divinized techniques were being used alternately. Moreover, the Ghost Crow used a divine martial technique and a beginner-level modified quasi-divinity source item to finally work together with the Holy Emperor to stop Soul King Tiangu. As for the other 2 demigod experts of the soul race, Red Oriole and Moon Song blocked them separately. However, it was obvious that the 2 women's density of power was much lower than the enemy's, and they could not resist the enemy's attacks at all. They could only keep retreating. If it weren't for the fact that both of them had divine source items from the eroding moon ancient region that Long Yu had given them, they would have been killed in no time. Fortunately, divine source items that had been modified at the elementary level were not cabbages that could be found anywhere. Among the three demigods of the soul race, only Soul King Tiangu had a beginner-level modified quasi-divinity source item. The other two demigods did not have any. Beginner-level modified quasi-divinity source items could only be obtained in the advanced areas of the Eclipse Moon Ancient region. Also, after obtaining them, they had to survive the final battle of the Eclipse Moon Ancient region and bring them out. If the soul race had mid-level modified quasi-divinity source items, they would have probably expanded their territory to the outside world a long time ago. This was also the limit of the soul race's strength. For Long Yu, obtaining quasi-divinity source items from the Eclipse Moon Ancient region seemed very easy, but for other people, it was very difficult. After all, the quasi-divinity source items in the Eclipse Moon Ancient region will be fought over by hundreds of alien geniuses in the three space zones. This bought some time for Long Yu. With the help of the quasi-divinity source item, Red Oriole and Moon Song resisted the enemy's attacks. Also, what Red Oriole had was a mid-level modified quasi-divinity source item that Long Yu had specially given her. It was called Roaming Soul, and it happened to be a quasi-divinity source item that was full of spiritual and soul power. It was the most suitable item to deal with the demigods of the soul race. Red Oriole did not have to use it when she was in the Blood Demon Galaxy. But now, in the face of life and death, Red Oriole had to show her strongest strength. Otherwise, she might not be able to see Long Yu again. Chapter 1634. In the depths of the soul race's territory. The demigod Ghost Crow, the new demigod Red Oriole, the Holy Emperor, and Moon Song were all stopped by the Soul King Tiangu, a demigod expert of the soul race. They could not return to the space-time tunnel they had come from, and were caught in a deadly battle. Roaming Soul, Soul Wall. Red Oriole possessed this mid-grade, modified divine source artifact. At this moment, it had transformed into 7 layers of mental barriers that enveloped her entire body, protecting her entire body. Outside the soul wall, a demigod of the soul race whose strength density was 16 times higher was constantly releasing terrifying waves of mental and soul attacks at her. The waves almost caused the space to tremble and shattered the 7 layers of mental barriers one by one. Although Red Oriole was already a demigod, the power of the roaming soul that she could use was limited. She did not completely master the demigod item like Long Yu, because she did not have that much time. Long Yu had mastered the Dark Flame Ghost Chains because he had spent a lot of time in the area where the flow of time in the Sphere of 9 Hells was slowed down. It was just that it had not been that long in the outside world. Therefore, the power of this mid-level source item could not be completely displayed. Of course, even so, Red Oriole could rely on the roaming soul to easily withstand the other party's attacks. Although the layers of spiritual energy barriers were constantly being destroyed, as long as the other party couldn't destroy all 7 layers of barriers at once, the roaming soul would quickly replenish them. The mental barriers kept appearing, being destroyed, and then being replaced again and again. The battle between Red Oriole and the demigod of the soul race fell into a stalemate. The demigod of the soul race was infuriating. It was extremely excited to see that Red Oriole actually had a demigod source artifact, and it was an intermediate demigod source artifact at that. However, it soon discovered that destroying that demigod source artifact would not be an easy task. Although Red Oriole could not use all of her power, a mid-level source item was still a mid-level source item. With a demigod of the soul race whose strength density was 16 times higher, it would still take some time to break through her defense. This stalemate had to continue. If it weren't for the fact that this space had been completely sealed off and there was no need to worry about Red Oriole escaping, it would have been even more difficult to deal with her. Moon Song's beginner source item was a crescent moon. However, this crescent moon wasn't a physical object, but was formed from starlight. The beginner source item Long you had obtained from the eroding Moon Ancient region was a perfect match for Moonsong's power and her innate divine grade absolute beginning. It contained the power of the Star Divine Text, which was a powerful revelation divine text. Combined with her body's affinity with this elemental divine text, she was able to unleash even greater power. In fact, in Moonsong's hands, this low-grade source artifact was no less powerful than Red Oriole's roaming soul. With the moon of stars and stars, Moonsong was fighting the demigod of the soul race whose power density was 17 times higher than before, but she was not at a great disadvantage. Instead, she was having a great time. Together with her various divinized techniques, she was not in much danger for the time being. The ones who were facing the greatest pressure were the demigod Ghost Crow and the Holy Emperor, who were fighting Soul King Tiangu. The Ghost Crow turned into a pitch-black bird, and the shadow of a black bird flickered behind him. He unleashed one innate technique after another, causing a lot of trouble for Soul King Tiangu. However, it was just a problem. Soul King Tiangu's main target was the Holy Emperor. Unlike Red Oriole or Moonsong, the Holy Emperor didn't have a modified demigod source artifact. In fact, she didn't even have one. However, she had a special battle weapon, and that was the 1,000 Feathers of Flight. After being smelted in the absolute beginning furnace, the 1,000 Feathers of Flight was much more powerful than before. Although the 1,000 Feathers of Flight couldn't be fused into 1,000 Feathers of Dragon Bone without Long Yu, its power still couldn't be ignored. After all, the Holy Emperor was already a demigod, and her power density was 10 times higher. Compared to when Long Yu used the Nether Void Dragon Blade when he was a rank 7 Great Dominator, the power of her current flight Extinction 1,000 Feathers was definitely many times stronger than the Nether Void Dragon Blade. The effects of a weapon of the same level in the hands of a demigod and an ordinary cultivator were completely different. Relying on the 1,000 Feathers of Flight and the innate technique after being divinized, the Holy Emperor was barely able to resist Soul King Tiangu's killer moves. His mind and soul were constantly in the enemy's soul-killing formation, and the situation was extremely dangerous. If it wasn't for the demigod Ghost Crow restraining Soul King Tiangu, the Holy Emperor would probably have lost her life. Soul King Tiangu's intention was very clear. He wanted to kill the Holy Emperor first, and then the demigod Ghost Crow wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. Hold on a little longer. Long Yu will be here soon. The Holy Emperor took the time to send a message to the demigod Ghost Crow. She had already turned into a snow-white bird, and countless snow-white feathers kept floating in the air. An invisible soul-killing formation surged and howled around her like a storm, full of killing intent. She kept in contact with Long Yu. After they persisted for an hour, the pressure from Soul King Tiangu's aura grew stronger and stronger. Even the methods that Soul King Tiangu used were becoming stronger and stronger. During the battle, the density of Soul King Tiangu's power was constantly increasing. At the beginning, Soul King Tiangu's power density was 23 times, but as time passed, it had now reached 26 times. Moreover, as the battle went on, the speed at which his power density increased became faster and faster. During this process, the demigod Ghost Crow and the Holy Emperor were under more and more pressure. Soul King Tiangu didn't use his trump card from the start. If he did, he might not be able to kill the Holy Emperor and the Ghost Crow. However, he was confident because he had the ability to increase the density of his power for a short period of time in battle. This ability was either provided by a special martial arts secret technique, or it came from the ancient god tattoo in the ancient god brain domain. The Holy Emperor and the Ghost Crow couldn't compare to these two at all. It's too late. I'm afraid that by the time he arrives, the situation will be a little dangerous. The demigod Ghost Crow was very tired now. Although he wasn't targeted by Soul King Tiangu during the battle, he was constantly hit by one of the opponent's innate techniques. Countless invisible soul threads slowly entangled his soul. These soul threads were inconspicuous at first, but after an hour, when the ghost crow started to pay attention to them, they had already wrapped around his soul tightly. If one could see the existence of a soul, they would see that Guiya's soul had been completely entangled like a mummy. As time passed, his soul would be completely entangled, and he wouldn't be able to use any power. He could only wait for death. No, Long Yu has never disappointed me. Now that he has stepped into the demigod level, he can not only weaken the opponent's power density, but he can also participate and fight with us. I'm looking forward to his combat ability after he becomes a demigod. The corner of the Holy Emperor's mouth curled. Although they were in a fierce battle and could be killed by the powerful killing formation of Soul King Tian Gu at any moment, she maintained the consciousness connection with Long Yu, so she could clearly feel how powerful Long Yu is now. Although he only had 10 times the power density like the other new demigods, Long Yu had more means than the others. No matter what aspect of power, Long Yu could be said to be the top. With the help of such a new demigod, even killing Soul King Tian Gu would not be difficult. The space-time tunnel has disappeared. Long Yu will be here soon. The Holy Emperor continued to send a message. The ghost crow's face darkened. Even the space-time tunnel had disappeared. Could they still escape? Even if Long Yu came, he could not change the current situation, could he? Now, in such a short time, the power density of Soul King Tian Gu had increased by another 2 times, reaching 28 times. This made the ghost crow feel a deep sense of helplessness. No one knew how much this guy's power density could reach. And once it reached 30 times, then he and the Holy Emperor would be completely killed without the slightest chance to resist. Die! Soul King Tian Gu's killing intent spread through the entire space, through his mind and soul. He had already sensed that the space-time tunnel had closed, so the next few demigods of the human race and the demon race had become his prey. They were destined to not be able to escape. The power density of 28 times was already enough to completely crush the Holy Emperor. At this moment, Soul King Tian Gu's killing move appeared once again. The power of countless divine characters condensed into a terrifying invisible sword chi, sweeping towards the Holy Emperor. Although the naked eye could not see the attack, the Holy Emperor could clearly feel the destructive power contained in the opponent's attack. Before, the Holy Emperor had completely relied on hiding to avoid the fate of her soul being riddled with holes. But now, she wasn't even able to dodge, because Chun-Shi's soul sword chi was truly too swift, and she was practically unable to react in time. It was also at this moment that a shadow flickered in the void, and then a simple giant tower appeared in front of the Holy Emperor, instantly fusing with 1,000 feathers around her. 1,000 feathers escape. A familiar yell rang out, and 1,000 bones condensed into feathers took the Saint Emperor in an instant and teleported in another direction. A figure in black appeared next to the Holy Emperor, carrying her to avoid the fatal attack of Soul King Tian Gu. Long Yu, the demigod ghost crow, was immediately overjoyed. He had thought that the attack just now could kill the Holy Emperor, but he did not expect that Long Yu would suddenly appear. And the good news was that Long Yu had actually stepped into the demigod realm. The demigod Long Yu had appeared. Chapter 16:35. The situation on the battlefield suddenly became unclear. Originally, Guiya, the Holy Emperor, and the other 3 would definitely be killed by Soul King Tian Gu's team. However, after Long Yu broke through to the demigod level, everything became confusing. Nobody knew what kind of strength Long Yu, who had just stepped into the demigod level, possessed. Even Long Yu himself did not know, because he did not know what kind of effect and power the Ball of Tartarus would have after it became a deified technique. Long Yu had appeared on the battlefield without any warning. Moreover, he had saved the Saint Emperor. This surprised Soul King Tian Gu. However, when he discovered that it was only a new demigod with 10 times the power density, he was relieved. The addition of such a human demigod would not affect the overall situation. However, why were there so many new demigods in the human race and the demon race recently? No wonder they launched a total annihilation war against the soul race. But they are merely new demigods. So what if there are more of them? The soul race will always stand under this starry sky. We will not be annihilated by you. Soul King Tian-gu carried with him endless resentment, as well as an incomparably thick fighting spirit. For the soul race, this war was an invasion, and the human race and the demon race were the invaders. Therefore, the people of the soul race were even more fearless when they fought, which was something that the human race and the demon race could not compare to. In order to repel the invaders, a large group of soul race cultivators near the border of the soul race's territory had already begun to explode bravely. Soul King Tian-gu was the same. His fighting spirit was unprecedentedly strong. Also, 5 demigods from the human race and the demon race had appeared, and 4 of them were new demigods, which made him very excited. If he could kill all 5 demigods, it would definitely be a huge victory for the soul race. It was mainly a boost to morale. Previously, the soul race had been beaten all the time, and more than 10 demigods had died. If they did not take back some interest, the morale of the entire soul race would become lower and lower. Long Yu. When Long Yu appeared, the demigod Ghost Crow, Moon Song, and Red Oriole noticed him immediately. However, the 3 of them were busy fighting their own opponents and could not talk to Long Yu for now. However, seeing that Long Yu had finally arrived and that it was Long Yu who had stepped into the demigod level, they were all pleasantly surprised. Red Oriole and Moon Song both felt that there was finally a glimmer of hope in this hopeless battle. However, if it still did not work, they might really die in the depths of the soul race's territory this time. The demigod Ghost Crow, on the other hand, was a little upset. After all, he was the one who proposed to go to the depths of the soul race to find trouble with the soul race. Now that Soul King Tian-gu was gone, the pressure on the front line must have been reduced a lot, but what replaced it was the lives of 5 demigods on their side. It was not worth it. The demigod Ghost Crow felt that it would be better if Long Yu did not come. At least they would lose 1 less demigod. However, now that Long Yu had come, he would probably be killed here as well. Before the Ghost Crow could think too much, Long Yu immediately started attacking Soul King Tian-gu after saving the Holy Emperor. Red Oriole and Moonsong's situation was fine for now. After all, they had demigod source items to support them. However, Soul King Tian-gu's strength was constantly increasing. The density of his power had reached 29 times. If they did not kill him first, they would not be able to escape no matter what. Dragon Feather, work with me. Long Yu reminded the dragon skeleton 1,000 feathers before charging in the direction of Soul King Tian-gu. In fact, there was no need for his reminder. The consciousness of the dragon skeleton 1,000 feathers could completely sense Long Yu's intention and cooperate with him immediately. At the same time, the Holy Emperor also understood the situation of the battle. At this moment, the Holy Emperor and Long Yu's consciousness were connected. The flow of the battle was much smoother than when 2 people work together. Dragon Skeleton Break Go. Long Yu used this move that originally belonged to the ancient Dragon Skeleton Tower. At this moment, he could naturally use the Dragon Skeleton 1,000 feathers as well. 1,000 Dragon Skeleton feathers surrounded Long Yu's entire body. Then he began to spin rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he charged in the area where Soul King Tian-gu was. The Dragon Skeleton Break did not have the ability to attack the mind and soul. However, when Long Yu arrived next to Soul King Tian-gu, he used the Boundless Grasp. The eternal hell-shaking divine rune suddenly burst out. An invisible hand suddenly appeared in Soul King Tian-gu's soul and grabbed him completely. Explode. The third grasp of the Limitless Grasp caused the eternal level hell-shaking divine rune to completely explode. While it had a slight effect on Soul King Tian-gu's soul, the most important thing was that the power of the Jade branding rune invaded his body. At this moment, the opponent's power density was weakened by 10 times. Originally, Soul King Tian-gu already had a power density of 29 times. It could be said that once his power density reached 30 times, he would be invincible in the nearby star field. But unfortunately, under the influence of Long Yu's Jade branding rune, Soul King Tiangu's power density was instantly weakened by 10 times, leaving only 19 times. This effect caused Long Yu to frown slightly. He originally thought that the effect of the Jade branding rune was to weaken any opponent's power density by half. But now it seemed that this was not the case. The maximum limit of the Jade branding rune's power density was only 10 times. In other words, when the opponent's power density exceeded 20 times, the Jade branding rune could at most weaken the opponent's power density by 10 times. For example, the current 29 times power density was weakened to 19 times. Although the effect of the Jade branding rune was not as good as expected, for Long Yu, this was not enough to declare his defeat. Even if the opponent's power density was still twice his current power density, he would not necessarily lose. Because now that he had stepped into the demigod level, he could finally use all kinds of methods without any scruples, and the power was much stronger than before. Just the limitless grasp just now, which contained the hell-shaking divine rune, had a significant impact on Soul King Tiangu. The power in his body was sealed for nearly a breath of time, allowing Long Yu to use this short period of time to distance himself from Soul King Tiangu. Kill! Soul King Tiangu did not send any extra thoughts. In the face of Long Yu's provocation, although he realized that this guy seemed to be a bit difficult to deal with, he still did not take it to heart. The difference in power density represented everything. With a thought, layers of mental ripples instantly gathered from all directions, and unknowingly, they had already enveloped Long Yu. Although these layers of mental ripples did not have any lethality, they had a great disruptive effect on the mind and soul. When used by Soul King Tiangu, it was completely capable of making some ordinary new demigods appear mentally deranged. In such an intense battle, once one's mind was deranged, even if it was only for a breath of time, the result was completely predictable. That was, the opponent would seize the opportunity and completely kill him. However, the corners of Long Yu's mouth curled slightly. When the layers of mental ripples were finally about to descend on his body, silver light shone from his body, condensing into an airtight mirror around his body. World-cleansing soul mirror. Although the layers of mental ripples were released by a super expert like Soul King Tiangu, when they encountered Long Yu's world-cleansing soul mirror, half of their power was completely reflected back. However, the power reflected back was no longer 10 times stronger than before. At the demigod level, it was completely impossible for the world-cleansing soul mirror to reflect 10 times the power of the opponent's mental attack. The effect of the reflection was greatly reduced, mainly because of the increase in the density of the power. If it was just reflecting ordinary power, the world-cleansing soul mirror could reflect 10 times the power, but with 10 times the density of power, the reflected power could only increase by about 1 time. But now that Soul King Tiangu's power density was 19 times, the world-cleansing soul mirror's reflection effect could only increase that half of the power by 50% and then reflect it back. Of course, even this effect was enough to shock Soul King Tiangu. World-cleansing body. Long Yu's body shone with silver light, completely blocking the remaining half of the mental ripples. Then, when he appeared in front of the others again, there were already 3 demon dust clones. These 3 demon dust clones had huge phantoms flickering behind them, and they each used a divinized technique towards Soul King Tiangu. 9 Nether Hand, Soul Seal Siphon, 9 Nether Dragon Breath. Long Yu's 3 divinized divine abilities appear at the same time. Among them, the 9 Nether Hand extended from a giant humanoid phantom. It glowed with a white light and grabbed Soul King Tiangu's mind and soul. Long Yu had fused the wood origin essence into the 9 Nether Hand's innate divine fruit and then directly extracted the metal origin essence. This way, the 9 Nether Hand had the special ability to imprison the mind and soul. At this moment, Soul King Tiangu couldn't escape. 9 Nether Hand. The phantom of a pitch-black dragon appeared, and a jet-black flame fell on Soul King Tiangu, who was trapped in the Nine Nether Hand, causing his mind and soul to suffer a terrifying burning power. The soul imprint siphon condensed into a siphon totem, continuously absorbing the spiritual energy in the surrounding space, before releasing it towards Long Yu, condensing into a layer of sturdy spiritual barrier beside him. For a moment, Long Yu seemed to be tied with Soul King Tiangu. The explosive power he displayed when he had just stepped into the demigod realm shocked even Ghost Crow. Even at the very beginning, it was very difficult for Ghost Crow to resist Soul King Tiangu to this extent. However, was the fight really a tie? At this moment, Long Yu was only using his ordinary means, and there was nothing special about him that surpassed other new demigods. It was impossible to rely on this to defeat Soul King Tiangu, who still had 19 times the density of his power. The next moment, Soul King Tiangu's soul power exploded, and the mental ripples spread out, instantly dispersing the phantoms behind the Nine Nether Hand and Nine Nether Dragon Breath. The density of its power also increased again, reaching 20 times. Chapter 1636. Long Yu had already learned through the consciousness of the Holy Emperor that Soul King Tiangu could constantly increase his power density in battle through some means. Now that the opponent's power density had increased again, reaching 20 times, he knew that he couldn't delay any longer, because no one knew what level Soul King Tiangu could reach in the end. If the power density was increased a little more, Long Yu really wouldn't be able to defeat this guy. If it weren't for the Jade branding mark, which weakened the opponent's power density by 10 times, Long Yu probably wouldn't even be able to resist a single move from Soul King Tiangu. I have to finish this quickly, Long Yu thought to himself, and finally made up his mind to use all his strength. Long Yu, who had stepped into the demigod level, had no idea what kind of combat power he had. At this moment, when Soul King Tiangu's power density had just reached 20 times, Long Yu instantly took out a beginner-level modified Divine Source artifact. It was the Divine Mirror Stone that he had used in the deathmatch area of the Eclipse Moon Ancient region. When the Divine Mirror Stone appeared, a vast and majestic power surged out from this Divine Source artifact. Mirror City. The eternal hell shaking divine runes all over Long Yu's body condensed through the Divine Mirror Stone, forming a giant mirror. These mirrors were completely dark gray and looked gloomy, but the power contained in them couldn't be underestimated. Once in the deathmatch area of the Eclipse Moon Ancient region, Long Yu activated the Mirror City and condensed a Golden Mirror City. At that time, he used the Golden Flame Divine Power, which was the power of a god with a power density of 100 times. Now, he could only use the hell-shaking divine runes that were 10 times denser. But even so, the power of the divine runes gathered through the Divine Mirror Stone was much stronger than the hell-shaking divine runes alone. It was even more terrifying than when Long Yu used the Boundless Grasp. The hell-shaking divine runes condensed into hell-shaking divine runes, completely enveloping Soul King Tiangu's spiritual soul. Then, in the next moment, it completely exploded, even if it was the hell-shaking divine rune. After exploding through the Mirror City, it still produced an incomparably strong impact on the mind and soul. Soul King Tiangu was enveloped by the Mirror City. When the Mirror City exploded, Soul King Tiangu's entire mind and soul suffered considerable damage. Even though Soul King Tiangu had promptly raised his spiritual defensive barrier, the explosion of Mirror City was still the most powerful attack of the Divine Mirror Stone, an elementary, transformed divine source treasure. Its might was absolutely not something that could be easily resisted. As for the Divine Mirror Stone, Long Yu could also fully utilize its power. Just like the Dark Flame Ghost, it could be said that he had completely fused with it. It was all thanks to the slowing down of time provided by the Sphere of Tartarus. Otherwise, not only would Long Yu not have been able to step into the demigod level, he wouldn't have been as strong in other aspects. When the Mirror City exploded, Soul King Tiangu's soul was injured. However, one could feel that the injury to Soul King Tiangu's soul was rapidly recovering under the brewing of a burst of spiritual divine rune power. Just like Long Yu's devil dust heart, which could rapidly reconstruct his physical body, it was similar in nature to a method that allowed Soul King Tiangu's soul to completely recover in an instant. It was very clear that Long Yu only had 10 times the power density. It was impossible for him to deal with Soul King Tiangu with just an elementary, transformed divine source treasure. However, before long you could use any other methods, Soul King Tiangu finally launched his truly terrifying attack. Corrupted Soul. Soul King Tiangu didn't know what kind of divine power or martial technique he had used, but strands of spiritual and soul power suddenly condensed around Long Yu. Then, these spiritual and soul power turned into silk threads that wrapped around Long Yu and quickly sealed his spiritual and soul in place. The silver light of the body of pure world kept flashing, but it was penetrated by the corrupted soul threads, trying to trap Long Yu in place. What kind of method is this? It can actually penetrate the body of pure world. Long Yu was shocked. This was the first time he had encountered such a divine power, but he didn't panic. Instead, he activated the innate divine power of the Book of Shadows and directly turned himself into the power of the corrupted soul, completely fusing with it. Then, Soul King Tiangu's next wave of attack fell from the sky. He didn't care what kind of power Long Yu had turned into. Instead, he directly used terrifying divine runes and 20 times the power density to condense a soul bomb. The bomb instantly exploded in the void where Long Yu was, and all the corrupted souls in the field were blown to pieces. At this moment, Long Yu didn't even have the time to activate the Book of Shadows before he had to endure the terrifying might of the soul bomb. In that instant, he transformed himself into nothingness. In just a breath's time, the space of nothingness was shattered, and his entire body left the space of nothingness, falling out of it. The terrifying, explosive power of the soul bomb blew up the nothingness that Long Yu had transformed into, and then bombarded the shining silver body of pure world, shattering the defensive layer of the body of pure world. Long Yu's entire body was covered in countless dragon bones and feathers. These dragon bones and feathers actually had the effect of weakening the power of the opponent's mental attack, allowing Long Yu to withstand it with great difficulty. However, his spirit and soul had also suffered a certain degree of damage. Long Yu couldn't quickly recover from the damage to his spirit and soul. If his spirit and soul were destroyed, he would really die. Just like the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor, he would be sealed in the 9 Hell Tablet, and although his physical body still existed, it would no longer be him. Long Yu gritted his teeth, and the 8 extreme bloodlines in his body instantly erupted. After experiencing the explosion of Soul King Tiangu, he knew that if he took another soul bomb like this one, he definitely wouldn't be able to survive. Therefore, he had to suppress the opponent and completely kill him before he could continue. The next moment, the 8 extreme bloodlines in Long Yu's body were completely opened, and all the power in his body was strengthened. His basic strength had reached 8 times his original strength. After reaching the demigod level, it was rare for one's basic strength to increase further. And after Long Yu stepped into the demigod level and activated the 8 extreme bloodlines, it was no longer the total amount of basic strength, but the density of strength. Moreover, the damage caused to the small world by activating the 8 extreme bloodlines was greater than before. Ball of 9 hells. Long Yu raised his hand, and the ball of 9 hells condensed. Countless pitch-black, entangling beams of light entangled Soul King Tiangu's spirit and soul. At the same time, the flow of time around Soul King Tiangu was completely slowed down. At this moment, in Long Yu's eyes, Soul King Tiangu's movement speed had suddenly decreased to only 1/10 of the original speed. He basically posed no threat to him. Unless the opponent could destroy the ball of 9 hells, he wouldn't be able to break through the slowing effect of the flow of time. And during this time, the power of the 4 divine characters in Long Yu's body suddenly burst out. divine characters of death, Azura, divine characters, hell divine characters, and netherworld divine characters. The four kinds of tyrannical power gathered together to form a land of death. The killing prison of four hells, the forbidden technique of the ancient gods, was immediately used. It was as if a domain of absolute death had been constructed, and even space began to wither within it. This zone of death directly trapped Soul King Tiangu's spirit and soul within it. Then, the power of the four kinds of cold divine characters began to constantly corrode Soul King Tiangu's spirit and soul. Under the influence of the Ball of Nine Hells, he suffered a suffocating pressure. The control of the Ball of Nine Hells and the killing power of the killing prison of four hells combined to form an extremely terrifying killing method. First of all, under the control of the Ball of Nine Hells, it was impossible for the opponent to resist the killing power of the killing prison of four hells. But if the opponent wanted to destroy the Ball of Nine Hells first, the power of the killing prison of four hells could definitely cause extremely serious damage to him, or even cause him to be seriously injured. The power of the killing prison of four hells continued to corrode Soul King Tiangu's spirit and soul, causing him to feel an unprecedented discomfort. The violent, tearing feeling of his spirit and soul letting him know that the strength of this human boy was very good, and he even had the strength to kill him. Soul King Tiangu's ancient god brain domain instantly burst out, and it seemed to have produced an extremely mysterious effect. Then his spirit suddenly burst out. At this moment, Long Yu felt that the density of Soul King Tiangu's power had actually reached more than 40 times. But it was only for a moment. This burst of power caused Soul King Tiangu's power to directly explode the Ball of Nine Hells. And then, with the remaining power, he directly rushed out of the area covered by the killing prison of four hells. This is the effect of some kind of ancient god pattern. It can instantly burst out with twice the density of power, and thus achieve a shocking effect in battle. Although it was burst out from the opponent's body, Long Yu still felt his blood boiling. It seemed that the opening of the ancient god brain domain could indeed have a lot of effects. If he could obtain some stronger ancient god patterns, then for a demigod expert, the increase in combat power could definitely be said to be a qualitative leap. But right now, what Long Yu should consider was not this, but that he had to first kill Soul King Tiangu. Fortunately, the Ball of Nine Hells was his innate ability, and he could condense it at any time. Also, the killing prison of four hells was just a forbidden skill of the ancient god. After stepping into the demigod realm, he did not need to worry about the problem of not having enough power, and he could also use it at any time. Countless pitch-black, entangling light beams were released from the Ball of Nine Hells, shooting towards Soul King Tiangu, and then continued to entangle his body. 5 devil dust doppelgangers surged out from Long Yu's small world, and each of them activated the ability of the Ball of Nine Hells, and then released it, pulling a large area of the battlefield into an area where the flow of time was slowed down. Soul King Tiangu's speed was reduced again. Outside the area, the demigod Ghost Crow and the Holy Emperor did not stand aside and watch. They originally wanted to help Long Yu, but seeing that Long Yu seemed to be able to deal with Soul King Tiangu, they chose to help Red Oriole and Moonsong. At this moment, seeing a large area of the battlefield where the flow of time was slowed down, the Holy Emperor and Ghost Crow, the two demigods, were both shocked. What kind of method is this? Why is it so powerful? Chapter 1637. The spheres of nine hells appeared in the field and restrained Soul King Tiangu. They even seemed to be controlling the increase of his power density. This gave Long Yu hope of defeating him. His true killing moves were mainly the four symbols Death Prison and the Dark Flame Ghost Chain. However, the Dark Flame Ghost Chain was a high-grade modified Divine Source artifact. It was best not to take it out easily in the depths of the Soul Race's territory. Otherwise, news of it would easily leak. This was not the time when they were defending the galaxy. As long as all the enemies were killed, the news would not leak. However, things were different in the depths of the soul race's territory. He could never know what kind of powerful beings were hiding in this part of the void. Perhaps there were scouts from other foreign races hiding in this part of the soul race's territory. Once news of this got out, the foreign races nearby would most likely make him their first target. It must be noted that the Dark Flame Ghost Chain was a high-level modified divine source item. It was extremely attractive to demigods. As mentioned before, only demigod experts whose power density reached 80 times would condense such a divine source item after their death. Then, they would be modified into high-level source items and unleash great power. For small races like the Soul Race, the Human Race, and the Demon Race, a demigod expert with a power density of 80 times did not exist at all. Only super races like the Sword Race, the Machinery Race, and the Six-Winged Race could have peaked demigods of this level. Now, that Long Yu had become a demigod, he guessed that the Jiyo Dragon Emperor had been a demigod of this level in the first place. His power density was definitely more than 80 times. Even such an existence had been killed with a single strike. Long Yu found it hard to imagine what kind of expert he had encountered. Was the difference between a deity and a demigod really that big? Soul King Tiangu, I'll use you to test the effect of my new Divine Eyes technique. Long Yu constructed a large area in the field where the flow of time was slowed down. Only his movements were not affected. Even Saint Emperor Redbird and the others would be slowed down when they entered this area. In Long Yu's eyes, everything in the area where the flow of time had slowed down seemed to be slowed down by 10 times, including Soul King Tiangu's movements. However, Soul King Tiangu was indeed very strong. He constantly used all kinds of methods, and the formidable power in the ancient god brain domain kept erupting. Every time it erupted, it would allow him to break a 9 nether ball, and then free himself for a period of time. Unfortunately, the speed at which Long Yu condensed the sphere of 9 underworlds was slightly faster than the speed at which it destroyed the sphere of 9 underworlds, causing it to be unable to escape the control of this area where time was slowed down. This shocked Soul King Tiangu. It had to be known that he had barely touched the threshold of the power of time. It was said that only existences at the god spirit level could control and use the power of time. The reason why demigods could not become real gods was because of their control over the power of time. If they could control time, then demigods would truly step into the level of gods. But right now, a human being who had just become a demigod was already capable of using the power of time to slow down the time in the area where he was. This situation left Soul King Tiangu in disbelief. Immediately afterward, each of Long Yu's Devil Dust clones began to use the 4 symbols Death Prison. Endless cold divine characters spread out in the area where the flow of time was slowed down and once again trapped Soul King Tiangu in a domain that belonged to death. The power of Azura, Hell, Yellow Springs, and death constantly corroded Soul King Tiangu's mind and soul, riddling his mind and soul. If it weren't for the fact that Soul King Tiangu had the means to quickly recover his mind and soul, he would have already died. As one of the 3 strongest demigod powerhouses of the soul race, Soul King Tiangu naturally had his strong points. The rapid recovery ability of his mind and soul was an important part of his combat power. It also allowed him to experience cruel life and death battles, and win countless cultivation resources for the entire soul race. At this moment, even in the face of Long Yu's absolute suppression, Soul King Tiangu did not show the slightest signs of weakness. Instead, his aura became stronger and stronger. The aura of his mind and soul erupted again and again. Some kind of ancient god pattern in the ancient god brain domain allowed him to continuously break the 9 underworlds ball and the 4 symbols Death Prison. Seeing that the 9 underworld ball and the 4 symbols Death Prison were not effective, Long Yu was a little surprised. The 9 underworld sphere and the 4 symbols Death Prison could be said to be his strongest means right now, but he still hadn't used his full strength. Now, it seemed that facing a powerful existence like Soul King Tiangu, if Long Yu didn't use his full strength, he really wouldn't be able to kill him. The Four Symbols Death Prison was a forbidden skill of the ancient god. Now that he had cultivated it to the initial realm, it was not easy to improve it. It would take a long time to accumulate. As for the 9 Underworlds ball, it had transformed when he stepped into the demigod level. Originally, Long Yu had not used the 9 Underworld ball after the divinization, but now it was impossible to kill Soul King Tiangu without using this divinized ability. Long Yu could feel that among the means that Soul King Tiangu used, there was actually an ancient god forbidden skill. The ancient god's forbidden skill combined with the exploding ancient god's mark in his ancient god brain field allowed him to destroy a few balls of the underworld in one go. Moreover, the speed at which he destroyed the balls of the underworld was getting faster and faster. The current Long Yu, other than using the high-grade source Grey Dark Flame Ghost Rope, had only one way left, and that was to use the 9 Underworlds ball as another layer of power of the divinized ability. After the innate ability was divinized, the cultivator could choose to condense a giant shadow and use the divinized ability, or they could choose to continue using the original ordinary ability. Until now, Long Yu had not used the divinized ability of the 9 Underworlds ball. When Soul King Tiangu continued to break the 9 Underworlds ball and closed in on Long Yu finally decided to make a move. 9 Underworlds ball, let me see what kind of power you have. Long Yu raised his hand, and a giant shadow of a jet-black divine dragon appeared behind him. This giant divine dragon looked a bit like the physical body of the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor, but there were some differences. Not only was it much larger, but its aura also surpassed the physical body of the Jiuyo Dragon Emperor. After the shadow of the jet-black divine dragon appeared, a deep black ball appeared in front of it. This was the divinized ability, the 9 Underworlds ball. When the 9 Nether Sphere appeared, a terrifying aura descended upon the entire audience. An incomparably fierce pressure fell from the sky, pouring into Soul King Tiangu. It actually caused Soul King Tiangu's entire body to produce illusions. These illusions were not ordinary illusions, but illusions condensed from the power of time. It caused Soul King Tiangu's spirit and soul to fall into the turbulent flow of time. His consciousness was completely immersed in it, unable to extricate himself. So strong, Long Yu was startled by the power of the 9 Underworlds ball. The phantom of the giant jet-black divine dragon spat out the 9 Underworlds ball. Even an existence as strong as Soul King Tiangu was pulled into the turbulent flow of time, causing him to lose consciousness for a moment. Although he didn't know how long he could trap his opponent, even a breath of time was enough for Long Yu to gain a huge advantage. Kill. When Long Yu discovered that his opponent had been pulled into the turbulent flow of time, he didn't hesitate. He urged the dozen demon dust avatars on the field to simultaneously use the 4 symbols Killing Hell on Soul King Tiangu. The endless power of death instantly eroded Soul King Tiangu's spirit and soul. Moreover, Soul King Tiangu's consciousness was completely immersed in the turbulent flow of time, and he was unable to awaken. This was the best time for Long Yu to attack him. Originally, Soul King Tiangu's spirit and soul could rapidly recover, but now this ability to rapidly recover had disappeared. Clearly, this recovery ability required Soul King Tiangu's consciousness to control. It wasn't like the demon dust heart that automatically helped him reconstruct his mortal body. Under the brutal attack of the 4 symbols Killing Hell, Soul King Tiangu's entire spirit and soul were quickly eroded by the power of death. His spirit and soul began to disintegrate under the power of death. After almost 3 breaths of time, Soul King Tiangu finally awakened from the turbulent flow of time. But it was already too late. Another explosion from Mirror City erupted near Tiangu's Soul King. Combined with the corrosion of death energy that lasted for 3 breaths, only a tiny wisp of his spirit and soul was left. The rest had already been decomposed into the purest primordial energy in the void. Soul King Tiangu's strength suddenly erupted. The ancient god brain domain was fully opened, and the density of his remaining spirit and soul suddenly increased by 40 times. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do to reverse the situation. This was equivalent to Long Yu only having a single demon dust heart left. If his opponent continued to attack the demon dust heart, it would be impossible for him to reverse the situation. It was the same now. Soul King Tiangu only had a single wisp of his spirit and soul left. Although he began to rapidly recover after the power of the ancient god brain domain erupted, the damage caused by Long Yu's 4 symbols killing hell was even faster. Soul King Tiangu's recovery speed couldn't compare with the lethality of the 4 symbols killing hell. After the two sides were in a stalemate for roughly an incense stick of time, the increasing number of demon dust clones and the 4 symbols killing hell finally became the last straw that broke the camel's back. The power of the 4 symbols killing hell had already spread throughout the entire battlefield. The 9 nether sphere also remained on the battlefield, exuding an extremely terrifying and awe-inspiring aura. The power of time flowed around Long Yu's body, causing space to distort. From the outside, it seemed as if Long Yu was in the center of hell. As for Soul King Tiangu, he had already been thoroughly killed in this hell. Devour, the divinized supernatural ability, the 9 nether sphere, naturally began to devour the remnant soul of Soul King Tiangu. His spirit and soul completely dissipated, and even his strength was devoured. At this point, Soul King Tiangu, one of the 3 demigods of the Spiritas, had finally disappeared from this world at the hands of Long Yu. Chapter 1638. Soul King Tiangu was one of the 3 demigods of the soul race. He had 23 times the density of power, and he had opened the ancient god brain field, which was fused with many ancient god stripes with special effects. Such a powerful existence was actually killed by Long Yu with his own strength. This could be said to be a miracle, but this was not the only miracle that had been born in Long Yu's hands. Only the demigod Ghost Crow looked like he had seen a ghost. He did not expect Long Yu to have such strength at all. The other 3 women, the Holy Emperor, Red Oriole, and Moon Song, were already used to it. The Holy Emperor, in particular, was connected to Long Yu's mind. The moment Long Yu stepped into the demigod level, she already understood how strong Long Yu was. No one knew that Long Yu had the 8th ability. Even Red Oriole did not know. But the Holy Emperor knew, and she knew how terrifying Long Yu's 8th ability was. This ability came from the Tablet of 9 Hells, which was an ancient god's item. It had absorbed the power of the entire small world of the Juyo Dragon Emperor, including the 7 innate fruits of techniques. The ball of 9 hells that was born in such a way, after it was turned into a divinized ability, the effect was simply terrifying. In the battlefield, Soul King Tiangu was completely dead. The huge shadow of the black dragon finally disappeared. Long Yu heaved a sigh of relief. It had been a long time since he had encountered such an intense battle. He had encountered such an opponent when he had just stepped into the demigod level. It was a good experience for him to improve his strength. In particular, Long Yu felt that he had used the 4 symbols killing prison many times in this battle. And during the process of the 4 symbols killing prison fighting against Soul King Tiangu, his understanding of the forbidden technique of the ancient gods had increased a lot. If I spend a little more time, it won't be too difficult to comprehend the 4 symbols death prison to the greater success stage. Long Yu was so happy. He knew that when the 4 faces kill prison reached its ultimate level, his power would increase. If the 4 faces kill prison reached its ultimate level, he wouldn't even need to use the deified ball of 9 underworld to deal with lonely soul King Tiangu. But no matter what, cleaning up the battlefield was the most important thing right now. After he completely killed Soul King Tiangu, the other 2 battlefields were basically over. After Long Yu came to the battlefield, the demigod Ghost Crow helped Moon Song deal with the demigod of the soul race, whose energy density was 17 times higher. After such a long time of suppression, the 2 of them finally took advantage of the moment when the demigod was distracted and killed it. The Sage Emperor and Red Oriole had also taken advantage of a rare opportunity to completely disperse the other party's consciousness and beat them half to death. And this opportunity was when Long Yu performed the deified ball of 9 underworld. Then, Soul King Tian Gu fell into a life-and-death crisis, which shocked the 2 demigods of the soul race. As a result, the 3 demigods of the soul race who wanted to kill Red Oriole and the others were finally completely killed. Long Yu activated the ball of 9 underworld and devoured the remaining mental power of the 2 demigods. Then, he sent the remains of the 3 small worlds to Long Yu. These 3 demigods were different from the ones he killed before. They were all the pillars of the entire soul race's territory. Any one of them was comparable to the veteran demigods of the human race and the demon race, and they were not any weaker than the demigods like Gaudy and Landslide. Therefore, the things in the remains of their small worlds were definitely not bad. There were a lot of treasures. The essence of the divine text and the essence of the absolute beginning were just one of them. Long Yu put away the remains of the 3 small worlds. Naturally, the Sage Emperor, Red Oriole, and Moon Song did not say anything. They had followed Long Yu for a long time. Even when they were stronger than Long Yu, they had treated Long Yu as their leader. Now that Long Yu had reached the demigod level and completed a transformation, he could actually kill Soul King Tian Gu on his own. Even among the entire human clan and the demon clan, this kind of combat power was extremely rare. Therefore, it could be said that Long Yu was already a top expert among the human race and the demon race. Even if the strongest experts of the human race and the demon race appeared in front of Long Yu, they might not be able to defeat Long Yu. After all, Long Yu's combat ability was too terrifying. Moreover, he still had the advanced source item, the Dark Flame Ghost Rope, that he had not used yet. Otherwise, it would have been even easier to deal with Soul King Tian Gu. As for the demigod Ghost Crow, he knew very well that his life had been saved by Long Yu. Therefore, he would not ask for the remains of the small worlds. Ha! I didn't expect that such a genius would appear in the alliance of humans and demons. The demigod Ghost Crow was full of excitement at this moment. I didn't really believe it when Flamboyant told me about it. But now it seems that you are much stronger than she said. The Empty God Temple will open in 2 years. After you enter the Empty God Temple and obtain the demigod secret cultivation method that belongs to you, it is not hard to imagine that your strength will surpass all the demigods in the nearby space zones. On the side of the human race, the demon race, and the alien race, the strongest demigod only had a power density of about 30 times. Even stronger demigods had appeared in the center of the entire Langus space zone. They were led by the Sword race, the Six-Winged race, and the Mechanical race. There were also other powerful alien races. Some of them had a power density of 40 to 50 times and were far stronger than the demigods of the human race and the demon race. However, there were not many training resources in those remote areas. The quality of the sources of divine runes left by the gods was not high. For the powerful alien races, they were not interested in fighting for them. Long Yu, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, we would have been buried in the territory of the soul race. The demigod Ghost Crow came to Long Yu and said to Long Yu respectfully. Previously, he was only somewhat optimistic and had some expectations for Long Yu. But now, it had completely turned into respect. In this world, strength was always number one. When Long Yu displayed a combat strength that far surpassed his own, he no longer looked at Long Yu as a senior looking at a junior. Instead, he looked at Long Yu as a peerless genius. Senior, you don't have to do this. If you hadn't stalled Soul King Tian Gu for so long, I wouldn't have had the time to come here. Long Yu shook his head. Although he had become stronger, he still had enough respect for the old demigods of the human race and the demon race. He took out some elixirs that were made of pure spiritual and soul power from Soul King Tian Gu's small world. Or rather, they should be called soul medicine. These soul medicines were used to heal the damage to the soul. In the battle with Soul King Tian Gu just now, even Long Yu's soul had suffered some damage, not to mention the Saint Emperor and the demigod Ghost Crow. Long Yu distributed a portion of soul medicine to each of them, which was used to heal their spirit and soul. After each of them consumed the soul medicine, they quickly recovered from the damage to their souls. The remains of the small worlds of the 3 demigods of the soul race were put away by Long Yu. They were still useful to him. Except for the soul medicines, he didn't touch anything else. All right, let's charge out of the soul race's territory. Now that Long Yu had killed Soul King Tiangu, there was almost no one in the entire soul race's territory that could match them. Unless the other 2 powerful demigods of the soul race joined hands to deal with Long Yu, they could totally dominate the entire soul race's territory. Of course, if the 5 demigods joined hands, they could open a space-time tunnel that led to the demon race's territory. After all, Red Oriole had the space-time coordinates of the Blood Demon Galaxy. She could open it easily, but they didn't have to. The space-time pathway that was established would last for 3 days. During the 3 days, if somebody in the territory of the Soul Clan decided to go to the Blood Demon Galaxy through the space-time pathway, it would not be good. Also, if Long Yu led the team to clean up the Soul Race's territory, it would be a crucial strategy for the annihilation of the entire Soul Race. If the annihilation of the Soul Race would take at least a few years, Long Yu had shortened the time by at least a year after he killed Soul King Tiangu. If he led the team to clean up the entire Soul Race's territory, it would only take a few months for the entire Soul Race to be completely destroyed. And that was the truth. When Long Yu began to clean up the Soul Race's territory, the entire Soul Race collapsed quickly. After realizing that Soul King Tiangu was already dead, most of the remaining Soul Race cultivators lost the will to fight. Even the other 2 demigods of the Soul Race did not choose to seek revenge on Long Yu, because they knew very well that the Soul Race was doomed. The most important thing for them now was to preserve the tinder of the Soul Race and fight for some space for survival. Their last chance was to preserve enough offspring and find a safe place to develop in seclusion. Or, like the Wine Race, they could find a race that was temporarily safe and accept protection. Of course, the price of accepting protection was to provide benefits to the race. For example, one of the conditions was that the Wine Race constantly provided the human race and the demon race with divine wine. It was not exactly taking advantage of them. The human race and the demon race provided the Wine Race with an environment for survival and development, and the Wine Race provided the human race and the demon race with their own technology, resources, and so on. It was a win-win situation. The Soul Race was defeated. The remaining 2 demigods of the Soul Race, whose power density was more than 20 times, even disappeared very soon. Taking the rest of the demigods of the Soul Race and some cultivation tribes with relatively high talents, they fled from the territory of the Soul Race. As for where they went, no one knew. All in all, the Soul Race was completely defeated. What was left was to divide up the huge territory of the Soul Race. However, at this time, a new war was brewing. Because the Soul Clan had been defeated too quickly, many of the galaxies within their territory had not been able to take over in time, causing the Ice God Clan, the Earth God Clan, and other foreign god clans to want to intervene. In the process of fighting for the Soul Race's territory, the allied forces of the human race and the demon race finally had one conflict after another with the alien races. Chapter 1639. After breaking out of the Soul Race's territory, Long Yu returned to the Blood Demon Galaxy with Red Oriole. As for the Saint Emperor, Moon Song, and the demigod Ghostly Crow, they participated in the competition for the territory of the Soul Race, mainly against the Earth God Clan and the Ice God Clan. Although the Soul Race's territory had been conquered easily, it was the result of 5 species attacking the Soul Race together. Right now, the Ice God Clan and the Earth God Clan were fighting against the human race and the demon race for territory together. The human race and the demon race were still under a lot of pressure. Thankfully, the human race and the demon race had achieved a good result in the eroding Moon Ancient Domain this time. Many new demigods were sent to the alien race's battlefield. For example, new demigods like the Saint Emperor and Moon Song. Although they could not fight against the veteran demigods of the alien race, they could still stall them for a while. Most importantly, The new demigods could completely crush the regular armies of dominators and grand dominators. Even the new demigods, even though they only had 10 times the energy density, could be used as strategic experts in a war between different species. They could come in handy at many critical moments. The ultimate effect of their participation in the war was likely to be that the human clan and the demon clan would have 10 more territories than they originally had. There were more than 400 galaxies in the entire territory of the soul race, which would eventually be divided by the human race, the demon race, the ice god clan, the earth god clan, and the wine clan. Among them, the wine clan had an agreement with the human race and the demon race, and there were certain restrictions in the agreement. For the wine clan, the territory they occupied could not be too vast. The human race and the demon race were the initiators of the annihilation of the soul race. Naturally, they should get the most benefits. Besides, the greatest contributor to the annihilation of the soul race was Long Yu, a super genius demigod of the human race. When Long Yu returned to the Blood Demon Galaxy, it had been a month since Long Yu went to the depths of the soul race's territory through the space-time pathway. During this period of time, the human race and the demon race had each occupied more than 50 galaxies. As for the wine race, they had already occupied 30 galaxies as a foundation for their development. Moreover, this was only the beginning. As the soul race completely collapsed after the last 2 demigod experts of the soul race escaped, the resistance that they would encounter in occupying the remaining territories of the soul race would be smaller and smaller. It would be easier and faster to occupy the galaxies in the territory of the soul race. As for the Ice God clan and the Earth God clan, they had each gained more than 20 galaxies. These 2 clans were purely there to be bystanders, but they had profited greatly. Many experts from the human clan and the demon clan were somewhat unhappy about this. However, when they thought of the fact that the Ice God clan and the Earth God clan had not restrained many experts from the Soul clan in the other 2 directions, they could not say anything. In any case, everything in this world was decided by strength, especially between races. It was impossible to calm down and reason with each other. However, as the legions of the Ice God clan and the Earth God clan gradually clashed with the legions of the human clan and the demon race, a new round of war seemed to be brewing. Long Yu also received a message from the demigod Gaudi, who said that the Ice God clan and the Earth God clan might need his help. However, he still planned to take care of his own business first. After all, it was impossible for him to really start a war with the Outer Protoss right now. It was just a small conflict. Neither the Ice God clan nor the Earth God clan was comparable to a race like the Soul race. In terms of comprehensive strength, the Ice God clan or the Earth God clan might not be as good as the Soul race. However, the key was that if any race attacked the Ice God clan or the Earth God clan like they did to the Soul race, they would be doomed. The remaining 6 clans of the Outer Protoss would all join hands to resist the foreign enemy. In normal times, or rather, in less critical times, the Outer Protoss would fight on their own. There were even great conflicts among them, and even wars might break out. However, when faced with the crisis of extinction, the 6 Outer Protoss would definitely stand together. It was also the biggest reason why the 6 Outer Protoss had survived to this day. When the 6 clans united, the top experts in their clans were probably only 30 times more powerful than the other clans. But their overall strength was simply too strong. Even the legions of the Dominators and the Great Dominators far outnumbered the other clans in number. Therefore, that was the reason why Long Yu concluded that it was impossible for the human clan and the demon race to start a large-scale war with the Ice God clan and the Earth God clan anytime soon. Therefore, he decided to take care of his own business first. His business was, of course, Red Oriole's business. After they returned to the Blood Demon Galaxy, Long Yu took Red Oriole to the center of the Blood Demon Galaxy, the Blood Demon Royal City on the planet of the Blood Demon Galaxy. Although Long Yu and Red Oriole had both advanced into the demigod level and did not need to care about the Blood Demon clan anymore, Red Oriole's father had been very kind to her when she was little. He was Red Oriole's family after all. It was impossible for Long Yu to turn a blind eye to him. The 2 of them went all the way to the Blood Demon Royal City. Almost all the members of the royal family of the Blood Demon clan, who had received the news in advance, were waiting for them in the main hall of the royal palace of the Blood Demon Royal City. This time, even Red Maniac, the supreme emperor of the Blood Demon clan, could not hide like last time, because both Long Yu and Red Oriole were demigods now. No matter how much they objected to Long Yu and Red Oriole being together, they could not show any disrespect when Long Yu and Red Oriole visited. Otherwise, the consequences of pissing off a demigod were not something that they could bear. In the main hall, everybody was solemn. The 7th general, the 13th general, the 3rd general, and the other important figures of the Blood Demon clan were all gathered in the main hall. As for the throne in the main hall, Red Maniac, the supreme emperor, was sitting with a somewhat gloomy face. He had witnessed Long Yu's transformation into the demigod level with his own eyes, and learned that Long Yu had killed Soul King Tian Gu, a big shot of the soul race, together with the demigod Ghost Crow, which meant that Long Yu was no longer the Long Yu in the past. He did not know yet that Soul King Tian Gu was killed by Long Yu on his own. Otherwise, he would have been even more shocked, and he wouldn't have said so many things today. When Long Yu and Red Oriole stepped into the main hall hand in hand, the hundreds of people in the hall all looked at them in awe. Even Yamaji Chi and the rest of them, who had been complacent when they faced Long Yu previously, became extremely humble right now. Faced with a demigod, how could the ordinary people like them have any temper? I'm the 3rd general of the Blood Demon clan. It's an honor to meet Lord Long Yu in your grace. Under Red Maniac's instruction, an old man walked out. It was exactly the 3rd general who had been assisting Red Maniac. He greeted Long Yu and Red Oriole respectfully first, and then said straightforwardly, "My lords, although you are experts in the demigod level, there are some things that I have to say. Since ancient times, the royal family of the Blood Demon clan has been pure. They rarely marry other demons, not to mention human beings. It's not that our clan despises human beings, but it's difficult for human beings to have offspring with the Blood Demon clan, although human beings are similar to the Blood Demon clan. It's difficult for demigod experts to have offspring in the first place. It's almost impossible for demigods and demigods of different races to have offspring with each other. Therefore, if I may be so bold, your grace, for the sake of the bloodline of the Blood Demon clan and the future of the Blood Demon clan, please make some other plans." The 3rd general's speech sounded rather thoughtful, and there was nothing wrong with what he said. However, he did not dare to ask Red Oriole to look for a few young talents of the Blood Demon clan. After all, the demigod Long Yu was present. Wouldn't it be the greatest insult to Long Yu if he said that? He could only tell Red Oriole about it. As for whether or not Red Oriole would listen to him, it was not something that he could control. Moreover, when the 3rd general said the words, he had already put his own life aside and was prepared to be killed by the demigod Long Yu or Red Oriole in fury. However, naturally, Long Yu and Red Oriole would not be so domineering. Red Oriole nodded. "You're quite right, 3rd general. However, there are thousands of elites in the Blood Demon clan. I am not necessarily the only one who can pass on offspring. As far as I know, it is possible for Brother Shualuo to step into the demigod level too." Long Yu smiled and continued Red Oriole's words. "From today on, human beings and demons will usher in an era that is more prosperous than ever. There will be more and more demigods. The training resources that they will bring will be able to raise more and more demigods, too. The Blood Demon clan may have a chance. Since Red Oriole and I are in love, her people are my people. Even if we cannot have offspring, I will not leave the Blood Demon clan alone. In the battle to annihilate the soul race, I have made a decision that at least 2 of the galaxies in the territory of the soul race that we occupy will be given to the Blood Demon clan. Naturally, Long Yu had a say in the distribution of the soul race's territory. Normal people might not know it, but the demigods were well informed. They had all learned from the demigod Ghost Crow that the Lone Soul King had been killed by Long Yu alone. Therefore, fighting for 2 galaxies for the Blood Demon clan was not a big deal at all. With 3 galaxies as their territory, the training resources that the Blood Demon clan could obtain would be 3 times more abundant than before. The number of talented juniors that they could raise would be 2 to 3 times more than before, too. It was a great gift that Long Yu had given to the Blood Demon clan. For the common cultivators of the Blood Demon clan, the great gift was equivalent to lowering the price of all the training resources in the territory of the Blood Demon clan by 2/3. It would be much easier for them to improve their cultivation. For a race, what resource was more important than territory? Besides, what Long Yu had given away this time were not just 2 galaxies. He extended his hand in the middle of the temple. 3 debris of small worlds that were invisible to the naked eye appeared in his hand. One of them was exactly the debris of the lone Soul King. Chapter 1640. The debris of Soul King Tangu's small world was definitely a rarely seen treasure for human beings and demons. Even for the demigods of the human clan and the demon clan, there was a high chance that they could find something useful from it and even improve their combat power by leaps and bounds. But for Long Yu, it was not particularly important. Long Yu was not short of training resources. As for the things that Soul King Tiangu's small world fragment might have, they wouldn't help him improve much. The most important thing for him now was time. He needed to spend a certain amount of time to try and comprehend the Golden Flame divine power. The debris of Soul King Tiangu's small world and the debris of the other 2 demigods of the Soul Clan. Long Yu decided to give them to the Blood Demon clan after thinking for a moment. After all, Red Oriole was his woman, and Red Oriole belonged to the Blood Demon clan. So, it was not a bad thing for him if the Blood Demon clan grew stronger. Also, it could be part of his strength in the future. Compared to the galaxy right now, the overall capability of the Blood Demon clan was much higher than that of the galaxy. After all, there were more than 10 armies of Dominators, not including the existences of the Dominator's arcane realm that did not join the armies. When Long Yu took out the debris of the small worlds of the 3 demigods of the Soul Clan, almost nobody in the royal palace of the Blood Demon clan dared to say anything. The debris of the 3 small worlds belonged to the experts of demigods. Experts of demigods were still something far away for the Blood Demon clan. If demigods of alien races attacked the Blood Demon clan, they would barely be able to resist at all. Of course, that was before Red Oriole became a demigod. Experts of demigods were like high and mighty gods in front of regular cultivators. Although they were only demigods, they were not much different from gods in the eyes of human beings and demons. How could they not be surprised when the debris of the 3 demigods of the Soul Clan appeared in front of them, just like that? Even Red Scorpion stood up from the throne in shock. There was undisguisable delight in his eyes. The debris of the 3 demigods of the Soul Clan, and one of them was the debris of Soul King Tiangu's small world. It must have been taken down by the demigods of the human race and the demon race together, wasn't it? Why would he let Long Yu handle it alone? Also, Long Yu gave them to the Blood Demon clan as if he did not care at all. Also, the human boy said that he would promise the Blood Demon clan the territory of 2 galaxies after the annihilation of the Soul Clan. Even if the boy had become a demigod, he was just a new demigod, wasn't he? How could he have such great authority? After pondering for a moment, Hong Ho knew that there was definitely something extraordinary about this kid Long Yu. That was why he was acting like this. Hong Ho wasn't sure what it was exactly. After all, he hadn't reached that level yet. No matter how hard he tried, it would be difficult for him to guess. Furthermore, if someone said that Long Yu had killed Soul King Tiangu all by himself, Hong Ho wouldn't believe it either. In any case, Hong Xiong had admitted that Long Yu had surpassed any of the young talents of the Blood Demon clan. Now that he had offered so many great gifts, it would be outrageous of the Blood Demon clan to make things difficult for him. Besides, he was already a demigod. Even if the Blood Demon clan were to make things difficult for him, there was nothing they could do. Instead of making a fuss with Long Yu, he might as well let it go. After leaving the Blood Demon clan, Long Yu and Red Oriole prepared to go to the territory of the Soul Clan and help them fight. By the way, Long Yu was also planning to visit the Wine Clan and ask the winemakers of the Wine Clan to give him more divine enlightenment wine. However, right then, they received a piece of news, which was that the galaxy was under attack. The attack was not from the Soul Clan, but from the Divine Water Clan and the Silverstone Clan. The two clans had joined hands and sent out quite a few demigods again, trying to break the barrier of the galaxy. The specific motive was not clear, but it seemed that the goal of the Divine Water Clan and the Silverstone Clan was very clear, which was to break the barrier of the galaxy. Right now, Long Yu, Red Oriole, and Moon Song had all left the galaxy. Consort Yu, Ji Tao, and Yi Ziwei were the only ones guarding the galaxy. For a moment, they were blocked in the barrier, unable to get out, because the enemies were too strong. Each of the two clans had sent out a demigod whose strength density was 20 times higher. A demigod whose strength density was 20 times higher should be one of the best in the Divine Water Clan and the Silverstone Clan. Why would they send them to deal with a small force in the galaxy like ours? Long Yu was quite confused when he received the news. He immediately thought for a while and realized that it was most likely the Sword Clan, the Six-Wing Clan, and the Machinery Clan who were behind this. Although the three clans could not arrive so soon, it was still possible for them to deliver the news. If the Sword Clan, the Six-Wing Clan, and the Machinery Clan were going to attack the human race, they would definitely pass through the territory of the Divine Water Clan and the Silverstone Clan. The galaxy was, in a way, the outpost of the human race and the demon race. In any case, let's go back first. Let's go. After saying that to Red Oriole, Long Yu decided to find the Saint Emperor and Moon Song first, and then go to the galaxy together. Until now, the human race and the demon race did not know about the existence of the galaxy. Only the demigod experts of the human race and the demon race vaguely knew that Long Yu and Consort Yu had established their own force in the void far away from the human race and the demon race's territory. There was basically no suspense in the annihilation of the Soul Clan here, so there was no need for Long Yu to get involved right away. However, the galaxy was under attack, which was something that had to be taken care of first. It was very likely that the Divine Water Clan and the Silverstone Clan were attacking the galaxy in order to obtain the space-time coordinates inside the galaxy. In that case, the experts of the three clans could be teleported here directly, which would be more convenient. When the Divine Water Tribe and the Silverstone Tribe launched such a large-scale attack, something must have happened. It was most likely that the Sword Tribe, the Six-Wing Tribe, and the Machine Tribe had made their move. According to his calculations, they should have already sent the news here and were preparing to come over. Be prepared to face the three clans of the Sword Clan. Long Yu reminded Red Oriole. Although the three great races hadn't appeared yet, it was very likely that they would show up halfway through the battle. It was very likely that they were waiting for news in the territory of the Divine Water Tribe or the Silverstone Tribe. He would let the Silverstone Tribe and the Divine Water Tribe scout the area first. If anything happened, they would be prepared in advance. This kind of action was more reasonable in terms of calculation. Therefore, Long Yu had to be prepared as well. Any demigod with a power density lower than 30 times is no match for me right now. However, among the three clans of the Sword Clan, there are experts with a power density 80 times. Although such existences can't leave their territory to attack the galaxy, it shouldn't be a problem to send some with a power density 40 or 50 times. Thinking to himself, Long Yu knew that the situation was urgent. Therefore, when Red Oriole went to find the Saint Emperor and Moon Song and inform them to go back together, Long Yu was in an empty place in the Blood Demon Galaxy. He activated the Sphere of Tartareth Hells and dragged himself into an area where time was 10 times slower. He began to train. From now on, he had to be in the state of training all the time. He stepped into the core space of the third level of the Steel of 9 Hells and continued to comprehend the 4 symbols killing prison, the forbidden technique of the ancient gods, with the speed 10 times faster. Before this, he had already reached small success in the 4 symbols killing prison, and after the fierce battle with Soul King Tiangu, he had used the 4 symbols killing prison many times. This sort of life or death battle brought about a rise in strength that could not be achieved through meditation. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Long Yu immersed himself in the third level of the 9 Nether Prison Tablet, comprehending the 4 powers of death, Azura, Hell, and Yellow Springs. He constantly absorbed them into his body, allowing the 4 symbols killing Hell to fuse with his perception and comprehensions from his battle with Soul King Tiangu to rapidly increase his strength. Long Yu was in the area where time was slowed down by the sphere of Tartareth Hells. Time was 10 times slower than the outside world. He had been training for 10 years, but only 1 year had passed in the outside world. It was the best way for him to improve himself and deal with all kinds of dangers in reality. What puzzled him was that even though he had devoured Soul King Tiangu and the other 2 demigods of the Soul race, time was still only 10 times slower in the sphere of Tartareth Hells. To achieve a breakthrough, Long Yu did not know what the conditions were. However, if devouring Soul King Tiangu did not work, it was unlikely that he could break through the limit of 10 times by devouring. Long Yu did not know the specifics, but he did not have the time to study it for the time being. It would take Red Oriole several hours to find Moonsong and the Holy Emperor. After all, the Holy Emperor and Moonsong were fighting against the Ice God clan and the Earth God clan on the battlefield in the territory of the Soul race. During these several hours, the divine spirit barrier of the Void Galaxy could totally hold on. So, Long Yu did not need to worry too much for the time being. Therefore, what he needed to do now was to prepare for the future. To face the experts of the Sword race, the Six-Winged race, or the Machine race, a power density of 30 times should be the minimum. It was even possible that someone with a power density of 40 times would appear to deal with him. After all, in the eroding Moon Ancient Domain, the Golden Six-Winged race already knew that he was a human and that he had the divine power of golden flames. If all the clues were connected, the Six-Winged race would definitely come to find him. A few hours was not a long time. But for Long Yu, he could cultivate in the area where the flow of time was slowed down for at least 3 days. After all, he had 3 times more time than others. After the battle with Soul King Tiangu, Long Yu had mastered the power density of 10 times. He was basically familiar with the power of the demigod realm. When he used the ancient god forbidden technique, the power of the 4 symbols killing prison was not just a little bit stronger than before. 3 days in the area affected by the sphere of 9 serenities passed in a flash. When Red Oriole came with the Holy Emperor and Moonsong and was about to find Long Yu to return to the Void Galaxy, Long Yu happened to walk out of the core space of the 9 Serenities tablet. After 3 days of meditation, he finally reached the great mastery of the ancient god forbidden technique. Chapter 1641. The 4 symbols killing prison, a forbidden technique of the ancient gods that he had comprehended to the greater mastery level, was at least twice as powerful as before. Long Yu's most destructive ability had been further enhanced. There was also one more important change. The 4 symbols killing prison, which had reached the greater mastery level, was twice as fast as before. In the past, Long Yu would need 2 to 3 breaths of time to activate the 4 symbols death prison. But now, Long Yu only needed to raise his hand to activate the 4 symbols death prison, condensing the 4 types of slaughter energy and completely trapping his opponent in the zone of death. It was also at this moment that Red Oriole came with the Saint Emperor and Moonsong. She opened a space-time pathway according to the coordinates of the galaxy that she had left behind. After Red Oriole stepped into the demigod level, she was already able to collect the coordinates of the galaxy. Then, after she left, she could work together with other demigods to open a space-time pathway and return directly. At this moment, of all the experts in the demigod level in the galaxy, only Ji Tao, who had occupied the body of the Geo Dragon Emperor, had the ability to open a long-distance space-time pathway on her own. The other demigods were all new demigods. In order to open a space-time pathway, they had to work together. At this moment, Long Yu did not do anything. With just the power of the 3 women, he had already opened up a space-time passageway that led directly to the Star River. Then, Long Yu constructed a concealment spirit array outside the space-time passageway. In such a way, the cultivators of the Blood Demon clan in the Blood Demon Galaxy would not see the space-time pathway and go to the Void Galaxy. After all, the existence of the Void Galaxy was still a big secret for regular demon cultivators. With Long Yu's strength, although he was not very proficient in formations, he was still a demigod after all. A concealment formation constructed with 10 times the energy density. Unless the opponent was also a demigod, it was absolutely impossible for them to discover this space-time tunnel. There were basically no demigods in the Blood Demon Galaxy. On one hand, demigods were rare in the first place, and, on the other hand, most of the demigod experts of the human race and the demon race had left to fight against the alien races. To be on the safe side, Long Yu had left a Devil Dust clone in the space-time tunnel. If any other existences entered the space-time tunnel, the Devil Dust clone would be the first to discover them. Then, it would inform Long Yu, allowing him to make preparations. After 3 days, the space-time tunnel would disappear, and the Devil Dust clone would naturally turn to ashes. Through the space-time tunnel, the 4 of them finally returned to the Void Galaxy. Long Yu, Red Oriole, and Moonsong had left this place not too long ago, but this was the Sage Emperor's first time here. As a genius who had also come from the Netherworld realm, the Sage Emperor naturally had a good relationship with everyone. When the 4 of them returned to the Galaxy Void, they immediately felt an extremely tense atmosphere, which made their hearts heavy. The entire area of the Void Galaxy was connected to the Divine Spirit boundary. When the Divine Spirit boundary was attacked, everyone in the Void Galaxy could sense the change. At this moment, Long Yu felt that the space around him seemed to be trembling. Clearly, the Divine Spirit boundary was under great attack. This attack came from the demigod experts of the Divine Water race and the Silverstone race. What's the situation? As soon as Long Yu appeared, he took the Sage Emperor and the other 2 women with him and teleported to a place close to the Divine Spirit boundary. Consort Yu, Yizu Wei, and Ji Tao, the 3 demigods, were all here. At the same time, there were also other warriors in the Void Galaxy, including Scarlet Flame Barbarian Xian and the others who had come from the Netherworld realm. When the Void Galaxy was under attack, they all had a common enemy, and no one wanted to escape. To them, the Void Galaxy was their home. They would not be controlled by any other forces, and they were given a lot of freedom. At this moment, everyone was hoping that Long Yu would return and kill the enemy, or at least force them to retreat. But at the same time, they were hesitant, because even if Long Yu returned, he wouldn't be able to face such powerful alien demigods. Would he? The 2 alien demigods both had a power density that was more than 20 times higher than normal. Even if Long Yu returned, it wouldn't be easy to kill them. Of course, people in the Void Galaxy had no idea that Long Yu had become a demigod, nor did they know that he had killed Soul King Tiangu of the Soul Race. After all, it was rather slow for humans and demons to spread the news to the Void Galaxy. Therefore, when everyone in the galaxy saw Long Yu appear with the 3 women, and all 4 of them were in the demigod realm, they all opened their eyes wide. Brother Long has become a demigod. I knew it. It won't take long for him to make the breakthrough. In this way, it will be much easier to deal with those guys. However, I'm afraid that Brother Long alone won't be enough to kill the 2 alien demigods. He needs help from the side. Everyone was surprised and started to speculate. Everyone was very clear about Long Yu's strength. They knew that since Long Yu had stepped into the demigod realm, then this wave of attack from the alien race should be able to be repelled. However, they didn't know Long Yu's specific combat strength, so they couldn't make too optimistic a guess. The Divine Water race and the Silverstone race are attacking together. There are 6 demigods in total. 2 of them have a strength density of 22 times, and the other 4 have a strength density of 15 or 16 times. It's very difficult to deal with them. Consort Yu turned around. Her eyes glittered when she saw the 3 women that Long Yu had brought back. Most importantly, Long Yu had also stepped into the demigod realm. In this way, the situation was much better. Even without Long Yu, there were 6 demigods in the Void Galaxy, which was the same number as the enemy. Besides, they had Long Yu. It seemed that they could finally face the enemy after hiding in the Void Galaxy for a whole day. Apart from demigods? Asked Long Yu. There are 12 legions of dominators in total. There are no major legions. However, those aliens shouldn't be the main force. They're just scattered around the entire Void Galaxy. Yizue floated over and said worriedly, even if we could defeat the alien demigods, I'm afraid we won't be able to annihilate the alien Dominator army. I'm afraid they'll learn something about the Void Galaxy. It doesn't matter. The Silverstone race and the Divine Water race are nothing to worry about. What I'm worried about is the possibility of the 3 major races' demigods. In any case, let's kill the demigods of the Divine Water race and the Silverstone race first. Long Yu said, and then prepared to attack. He had been waiting for a long time. If he dilly-dallied any longer, the Divine Spirit boundary might really be completely destroyed by his opponent. If that happened, the entire Void Galaxy would be completely defenseless. It would be like a lamb that had shed its disguise in the midst of a pack of wolves. Kill them all? Hearing Long Yu's words, Consort Yu, Yizue, and Ji Tao were all a bit surprised. Was Long Yu so confident that he could kill all 6 demigods? 2 of the demigods were aliens with more than 20 times the strength density. Even though their strength density had been reduced by half by the star branding mark, they were still stronger than them. It shouldn't be a problem for them to escape, even if they couldn't defeat them. Did Long Yu have a sure-win way to completely annihilate the opponents? Thinking about that, Consort Yu and the rest of them were all very excited and expectant. They had been on missions with Long Yu for a long time, especially Consort Yu. In the Eclipse Moon Ancient Domain, she already knew that Long Yu's combat ability was much higher than that of common trainers, and it would be the same after he became a demigod. If it was Long Yu, it wouldn't be impossible for him to kill all 6 demigods of alien races, would it? Consort Yu didn't know how strong Long Yu was exactly, but she was very confident in Long Yu. At this moment, Consort Yu felt very lucky that she carved the dragon seal of 9 serenities for Long Yu and helped Long Yu improve all the way. At that time, she merely followed a consciousness that appeared in her head, and then the consciousness was magnified and made her notice Long Yu. Now that she thought about it, the consciousness that appeared in her head was rather weird, as if it knew something. However, Consort Yu never received the consciousness again after that. She even felt that the consciousness that appeared in her head was merely her subconsciousness. Of course, after Consort Yu stepped into the demigod level, she sensed that the mysterious consciousness that reminded her seemed to be beyond the demigod level. The air and the language were too mysterious to be given out by common trainers, and it couldn't have belonged to Consort Yu. At this moment, Consort Yu knew that Long Yu was definitely not an ordinary person. He had certain features that were completely unknown to outsiders. Therefore, after hearing Long Yu's plan, she said first, then let's take action together. Long Yu, how about you deal with one of the demigods of the Divine Water race whose strength density is 22 times? I'll take care of it as soon as possible. As for the other 5 demigods, I'll ask the Devil Dust clones to assist you in the battle. After I take care of the demigod of the Divine Water race, I'll help you take care of the rest. Long Yu nodded. He already had a battle plan in his heart. The demigods of the Divine Water race and the Silverstone race were probably not as strong as Soul King Tiangu. Also, since the 2 aliens had specific forms, they would be much easier to deal with than Soul King Tiangu. Of course, Long Yu couldn't be careless. Therefore, he decided to let other people stall the other 5 alien demigods while he took care of the demigod of the Divine Water race as quickly as possible. As long as his operation succeeded, there would be no suspense in the whole battle. Chapter 1642. The other 6 were Consort Yu, Yizue, Ji Tao, Red Oriole, Moon Song, and the Saint Emperor. The 6 of them were about the same in strength. Consort Yu was slightly stronger, and Red Oriole and Moon Song were also slightly stronger because they had modified quasi-divine source items. So, the distribution was very simple. It was mainly because of the demigod of the Silverstone race, whose strength density was 22 times higher than usual. That guy needed 2 of them to suppress it. As for the remaining 4 demigods, each of them could stall one of them. It was not very stressful for them. More importantly, Long Yu would support them with the Devil Dust clones. The demigods that were attacked by the Devil Dust clones would be affected by the star branding stripes. Their strength density would be reduced by at least half, and their strength density would be reduced by 10 times at most. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for the women to kill the enemies easily, but it was impossible for the enemies to break free from the women's restraint, either. We have to be fast because I have a feeling that something else is hiding behind the enemy's attack. We can't be careless at all. Even if we annihilate all the enemies, we can't be careless, because other dangers may come at any time. After speaking to everyone, Long Yu finally led the 6 demigods and charged out of the Divine Barrier. The Divine Barrier was a protective barrier for the Void Galaxy. If the outsiders wanted to enter the Void Galaxy, they would have to break the Divine Barrier first. Even the demigods of the alien races, who had 20 times the density of power, would need at least a few days to break a corner of the Divine Barrier. For Long Yu and the rest of them, it was very easy to pass through the Divine Barrier because they all had the miraculous pieces in their hands. Under the effect of the miraculous pieces, Long Yu led the 6 demigods through the Divine Barrier easily. Then, he sensed the alien demigods who were attacking the Divine Barrier with all their might. On your mark, attack! After leaving the Barrier of Gods, Long Yu locked onto the most eye-catching great demigod of the water race without any hesitation. The great demigod of the divine water race was in existence with 22 times the power density. It looked like a pool of gray, stagnant water, and it was filled with the air of death. It was attacking the barrier with the divine power of shadow, life, and ice. Those alien demigods had been attacking the barrier for more than a day, but they were still full of energy. After all, for demigods, there was no such thing as energy consumption. Of course, if the power output was sustained for a long time, it would cause damage to a demigod small world, like what happened when Long Yu activated his 8 extremities bloodline. But, generally speaking, such a situation would not happen. You guys hold on. I'll help you after I kill that guy. While talking, Long Yu released 6 Devil Dust clones. The 6 Devil Dust clones followed the other 6 women to deal with the other 5 demigods. Among them, Red Oriole and Moonsong joined hands and attacked the other giant demigod of the Silverstone race together with 2 of Long Yu's Devil Dust clones. They were so fast that they instantly dragged the opponent into a spatial turbulence. Red Oriole and Moonsong activated their divine origin items as quickly as possible and forced the demigod expert of the Silverstone race, whose power density was 22 times higher, to stay away from the center of the battlefield. At the same time, the 2 Devil Dust clones of Long Yu also performed the Boundless Grasp as fast as they could and attacked the Silverstone demigod. The effect of the star branding mark weakened the Silverstone demigod's power density. However, due to the distance between them and Long Yu, the power of the 2 Devil Dust clones was not very complete. They only managed to weaken the opponent's power density by 8 times. Even so, it was enough to greatly reduce the opponent's strength. Red Oriole and Moonsong should have no problem dealing with it. In the other directions, the Saint Emperor, Consort Yu, Yi Wei, and Jitao each worked with a Devil Dust clone to deal with the other 4 alien demigods. For a moment, the battlefield was very intense. Terrifying energy waves spread out from all directions. The outbreak of the battle between demigods made the nearby members of the Dominator army retreat. If they were involved in a battle between demigods, the only thing that awaited them was death. There was no way they could survive. Therefore, when they saw the demigod experts charging out of the galaxy, they immediately retreated. They did not think that they would lose, because according to the previous intelligence, the few demigods in the force where the galaxy was located were all new demigods. There were no particularly strong ones. Under such circumstances, how could they lose to such a weak force in the galaxy? Therefore, The members of the Dominator army all retreated and stayed in a place that was relatively far away to observe the battle. Battles between demigods were very rare. Perhaps they could learn something from the battle, which would have a critical impact on their cultivation. At this moment, the demigods on the battlefield finally began to use their powerful skills. Among them, Long Yu and the great demigod of the divine water race in the center of the battlefield were the most powerful. From the very beginning, Long Yu had planned to annihilate the enemy. If the battle dragged on, it would be very disadvantageous for the overall situation. It might even lead to the death of the demigods on the galaxy's side. It was not the situation that Long Yu wanted to see. Therefore, when Long Yu charged at the great demigod of the divine water race, he did not hold back at all and launched the Hand of Nine Serenities, a divinized technique. Under a wave of terrifying coldness, the illusion of a pitch-black dragon suddenly appeared from the void and condensed into a pitch-black ball of 9 serenities. Then, from the ball of 9 serenities, countless pitch-black rays of light shot out and enshrouded the great demigod of the divine water race. The feeling of time disorder immediately fell on the powerful great demigod of the divine water race. At first, the demigod of the divine water race did not think much of Long Yu. After all, the latter seemed to be just a new demigod whose strength density was only 10 times higher. However, when the ball of 9 serenities was launched, it already sensed that something was wrong. It contained the power of time. It was a power that even it could not control. Even the sword race, the six-winged race, and the machine race did not have demigods who could control the power of time so smoothly. However, it was already too late for the divine water race to realize what was going on. The feeling of time disorder completely enshrouded it. The divinized ball of 9 serenities dragged the great demigod of the divine water race into a space of time disorder. Then, it was completely unable to free itself. At the same time, its strength density was reduced by 10 times, leaving only 12 times. It did not have much of an advantage compared to Long Yu. 4 symbols killing prison. Kill. Without any hesitation, Long Yu activated the ultimate move of the 4 symbols killing prison and instantly covered the great demigod of the divine water race that was dragged into the space of time disorder. The power of 4 different divine symbols corroded the body of the divine water race. Since the enemy was a life form with a body, the corrosion of the 4 symbols killing prison was more convenient and caused greater damage to the enemy. It was also at this moment that the huge gray wave body suddenly dispersed and turned into countless small gray water droplets that scattered in all directions. It seemed like it wanted to turn into other small water droplets and escape. However, how could Long Yu let do that? Ball of 9 serenities. Divinized divine ability. The 9 underworld sphere continuously shot out countless pitch-black beams of light, enveloping the entire battlefield. The effect of slowing down the flow of time by 10 times covered the entire center of the battlefield. Long Yu himself wasn't affected, but apart from him, everything else seemed to have slowed down by 10 times in his eyes. Under such circumstances, even if the great demigod of the divine water race turned into billions of water drops and wanted to fly away, it would not be able to slip away under Long Yu's nose. The Void Shadow Dragon dagger flew out of Long Yu's pocket. Then, the primordial power of water was condensed in the battlefield. Void Burial. Explode. Countless swirls of the primordial power of water exploded in the battlefield, absorbing the countless water drops and annihilating them. Under normal circumstances, the great demigod of the water tribe definitely wouldn't have been affected by the void burial. However, in order to escape from the death prison of 4 symbols, it split into billions of water droplets. As a result, the defense of each water droplet was not worth mentioning at all. It was easily absorbed by the void burial and completely exploded, becoming history in the void. Under the attack of the Nether Dragon Blade, not a single one of the water droplets was able to escape. They were all destroyed by the Nether Burial Stream. As for the remains of the Divine Water Clan's small world, they were left behind. They floated in the void and were taken away by Long Yu. Awakening, level 4. Brilliance beamed out of Long Yu's eyes. After the explosion just now, he had finally awakened the Void Shadow Dragon Dagger to level 4. And the awakening skill that was born was passive, which increased the density of the primordial power of water in the Void Shadow Dragon Dagger by 10 times. This caused Long Yu to be slightly surprised, so to speak, because I've already stepped into the demigod level. Awakening the Void Shadow Dragon Dagger may increase the density of its power to the level of a new demigod, Long Yu thought to himself. He was very excited. This way, he would have one more killing move. After the density of the Void Shadow Dragon Dagger was increased by 10 times, even the Void Burial could cause damage to demigod experts, and it could easily crush legions, such as the Secret Realm of Dominators. If Long Yu were to deal with the legions of alien dominators again, he did not need to use the Dark Flame Ghost Chains at all. He only needed to use the Void Burial, or he could even use Divine Eyes techniques, such as the Dragon Breath of the Netherworld. Chapter 1643. After only a short time, Long Yu had killed the great demigod of the Divine Water Race. Although his main attack was the Death Prison of 4 Symbols, it was impossible for the Death Prison of 4 Symbols to kill the enemy without the Sphere of Tartarus. The enemy would have dodged it easily. Of all the methods that Long Yu had, the Sphere of Tartarus was, without a doubt, the most powerful one. It was a method of control without any suspense. It could drag the enemy into the turbulence of the gap of time, making it impossible for the enemy to use any strength for at least 3 seconds. No demigod could resist such a method, not even if the power density was 60 times or even 10 times higher than that of the demigod. Only when the power density was 100 times higher and the true meaning of the power in the world could they resist Long Yu's attack. Long Yu had performed 2 of his most powerful methods in a row. He did not give the enemy any chance at all. He was taking advantage of the opportunity to kill all the enemy demigods so that they would not have a chance to run away. Not even one of them. The news of the Void Galaxy had been leaked. Long Yu would kill any demigod that came, so that they would know that the Void Galaxy was not a place that aliens like them could come and go as they pleased. When Long Yu killed the great demigod of the Divine Water Race in an astonishing way, everybody was shocked. Even the Saint Emperor, Red Oriole, and Moon Song, who were prepared, found it hard to believe. The great demigod of the Divine Water Race was as strong as Soul King Tiangu. Although Soul King Tiangu had opened the ancient God-Brain domain, how could Long Yu kill the demigod of the Divine Water Race so easily? As for Consort Yu, Yi Zuwei, and Ji Tao, who were not clear about Long Yu's combat ability, they did not expect that Long Yu could kill the enemy so quickly. They had been prepared for a protracted battle, but they did not expect that Long Yu would not give them much of a chance to fight at all. After the demigod of the Divine Water Race was killed, the outcome of the battle was obvious. Almost at the same time that the demigod of the Divine Water Race was killed, the demigod of the Silverstone Race sensed that something was wrong. It immediately turned around and tried to run away. The violent power of space burst out of its body and enshrouded its enormous body. At this moment, Red Oriole, Moon Song, and the 2 Devil Dust clones had only fought it for 3 seconds, but had already seen the miserable state of the demigod of the Divine Water Race and decided to run away without any hesitation. The demigod of the Silverstone Race, on the other hand, knew very well that the demigod of the Divine Water Race, who came to attack the Void Galaxy, with it was as strong as itself. Now, even the demigod of the Divine Water Race had been killed. If it did not run away, it would be the next one to die. Therefore, it turned around and ran away without any hesitation. The power of space penetrated out, as if it were taking it away from this space. This explosion actually created a temporary space-time tunnel that could only exist for a few breaths of time. However, it was able to teleport him to an extremely distant place in that time. If Long Yu caught up to it, it would be perfect. It could catch Long Yu like a turtle in a jar. If he did not chase after it, it would be able to escape successfully and save its life. Also, it would receive the information about Long Yu and certain precious rewards. It was a pity that the demigod of the Silverstone race was too naive. Devil Dust clones, stop it. With a thought from Long Yu, the two Devil Dust clones used their own methods. One of the Devil Dust clones created a 9 Serenities ball in front of it. Although it was not a deified technique, it could still create an area where the flow of time was slowed down and enshrouded the demigod of the Silverstone race. Long Yu discovered that although the Devil Dust clones could use most of the methods that he himself could use, the deified 9 Serenities ball was the only thing that they could not perform. These Devil Dust clones could even perform other deified techniques, such as Hand of 9 Serenities and Dragon Breath of 9 Serenities. However, when the Devil Dust clones were further away from Long Yu, the power of their methods would be weakened. In addition, Long Yu could vaguely feel that although he did not need to consume any of his strength after entering the demigod realm, if he used some methods too many times in a short period of time, the space inside his small world would be damaged. This was especially obvious for the Devil Dust clones. Every time the Devil Dust clones used stronger methods, such as the 9 Serenities ball or the 4 aspects killing prison, Long Yu's small world would always feel like it was trembling. If it reached a critical point, his small world would still be damaged, just like the situation after the 8 Extremities bloodline was activated. Moreover, once the small world was damaged in this way, the damage inside the small world would be even more serious than when the 8 Extremities bloodline was activated. If he wanted to repair it, he would need more creations. If it were not for the fact that Long Yu had obtained a lot of creations from the eroding Moon Ancient domain, he would definitely not use this method of fighting. However, it did not matter. Even if his small world suffered some serious damage, he could quickly absorb the power of creation to recover. The two Devil Dust clones used their own methods and trapped the Silverstone demigod, who was trying to escape in an area where the flow of time was slowed down. Then, the 4 aspects killing prison was activated. In the blink of an eye, Long Yu's main body teleported over through the void. He raised his hand and activated the deified technique, the 9 Serenities ball. The demigod expert of the Silverstone race, with 22 times the strength density, was definitely not weak. Even when fighting against Song of Orioles and the 2 Devil Dust clones, he was not at a disadvantage at all. He was even vaguely suppressing them. However, in the face of Long Yu's deified technique, the 9 Serenities ball could not resist at all. It was dragged into the gap of the turbulence of time without any resistance. It had even summoned the temporary tunnel of time and space, but it was blocked by Long Yu at the entrance of the tunnel. Then, the 4 aspects killing prison fell abruptly, and 4 kinds of intimidating power of death corroded the demigod of the Silverstone demigod. However, different from the demigod of the Divine Water Tribe, this Silverstone demigod's body was much stronger. Long Yu's 4 aspects killing prison alone could not kill it completely in 3 seconds. Even though it was the death prison of the 4 symbols that had already reached large success, the Silverstone race's body contained some sort of resistance to the power of the divine characters. After the death prison of the 4 symbols invaded its body, it was weakened by at least half. It was obvious that this demigod of the Silverstone demigod was not weak. If it were any other demigod of the human race or the demon race, it would take too much effort to kill it. Long Yu's 4 aspects killing prison was a forbidden technique of the ancient gods. It was a trump card even in the eroding Moon Ancient domain. Not everybody could learn it. Even so, it was still extremely difficult to kill the demigod of the Silverstone demigod. After 3 seconds, the demigod of the Silverstone demigod struggled out of the turbulence of time and crashed into the tunnel of time and space crazily. Even the area where the flow of time was slowed down was slightly twisted under the terrifying collision. It was a pity that the power of time could not be controlled. For the demigod of the Silverstone demigod, no other force could break through the area where the flow of time was slowed down no matter how strong it was. Void Burial, go! Long Yu raised his hand, and the Void Shadow Dragon Dagger was launched. The power of the primordial water race burst out at the entrance of the tunnel of time and space, forming a swirl of the power of the primordial water race, dragging the demigod of the Silverstone demigod into it. The power density of the void burial was also 10 times that of the demigod of the Silverstone demigod. Under the influence of the star branding mark, the demigod of the Silverstone demigod was only 12 times that of the demigod of the Silverstone demigod. Therefore, the difference between the two parties was basically not very big. Under the dual influence of the void burial and the 4 aspects killing prison, the demigod of the Silverstone demigod's body started to decay and be destroyed no matter how tough it was. Cracks appeared on the silver, smooth surface of the demigod of the Silverstone demigod. Then, the dark, gloomy power of death leaked out and surrounded it, corroding it repeatedly. Right at the entrance of the temporary tunnel of time and space, the gigantic demigod of the Silverstone demigod was completely disintegrated by the 2 methods. The other demigods of the alien races were even more horrified after seeing that. The 2 strongest demigods were already dead. If the 4 of them resisted stubbornly, wouldn't they be feeding themselves to the enemy? Almost at the same time, the 4 demigods began to fly in different directions. The 2 demigods of the Silverstone demigods and the 2 demigods of the water demigods all made the same choice. Faced with a powerful existence that they could not resist at all, their fighting spirit was completely gone. Instead of dying for nothing, they might as well try to see if they could escape. After all, no matter how strong Long Yu was, he was only one person, but it was a pity that although Long Yu was alone, he had the Devil Dust clone. The Devil Dust clone that had been following Consort Yu, and the others quickly activated the technique of the Sphere of Tartarus. The area where the flow of time was slowed down instantly spread out, covering all the 4 demigods of the alien races. The 4 demigods of the alien races, on the other hand, were 10 times slower than before. The space in the field had already been blocked by everybody. The techniques, such as the Saint Emperor's Holy Light Blockade, made it impossible for the demigods of the alien races to use any spatial divine symbols to teleport. Under such circumstances, the effect of the Sphere of Tartarus was almost maximized. The power of time was unstoppable. In the next moment, the King of Instant Kill appeared next to the 4 demigods of the alien races and killed them one after another. To deal with those weak and frightened demigods of the alien races, Long Yu basically only needed one move to kill them easily. However, he still used 2 moves to deal with each demigod of the alien races, namely the 4 symbols Death Prison and the Void Burial, in order to ensure that the enemy would not be left behind. Chapter 1644. The Divine Water Tribe and the Silverstone Tribe's ferocious attacks crumbled in an instant after Long Yu made his move. The 2 demigod experts of the Divine Water race and the Silverstone race, whose power density was more than 20 times higher than before, couldn't escape from Long Yu's hands even though they tried their best. The power of the Sphere of Tartarus after deification was too strong for regular cultivators to resist. Not even demigods could do it. After all the demigods of the alien races were killed, Long Yu didn't pursue them. There were still many members of the Dominator army surrounding him. At this moment, as the demigods of the alien races were killed, they all turned around and fled. Long Yu didn't plan on killing all the outsiders in the ruler's mystic realm. After all, it was too difficult to do so. The other party was too scattered, and they were everywhere in the void. There was no need to deal with them carefully. Besides, what worried Long Yu the most was the demigods of the sword race, the 6-winged race, and the mechanical race. If the people in the universe split up to deal with the alien races in the Dominator's mysterious realm, it would be very dangerous if they were ambushed by some powerful beings. To be safe, after swallowing the bodies of the 6 demigods of the alien races with the Sphere of Tartarus, Long Yu took everyone back to the inner part of the universe. Now that the alien demigods were dead, the alien dominators scattered like birds and beasts. They didn't dare to launch any more attacks on the Void Galaxy. Otherwise, the only thing that awaited them was death. No alien race would be that stupid. Peace returned to the vicinity of the Void Galaxy, but it was a pity that the peace would not last for long. After swallowing the bodies of 6 demigods of alien races, and all of them were rather strong, the ball of Tartarus did not show any obvious changes. As soon as Long Yu returned to the Void Galaxy, he began his research. The sphere of Tartareth was his most powerful method right now, and it was also the most straightforward method to deal with the alien demigods. However, this move seemed to have hit a bottleneck. The best it could do was to slow down the flow of time by 10 times, and the effect of dragging the opponent into the vortex of the time gap had also stagnated and could not be improved. It seemed to be enough for now, but Long Yu knew that if he encountered any powerful beings, he might not be able to kill them even if he used the sphere of Tartarus. For example, if the demigod from the Silverstone race was 5 times more powerful, Long Yu definitely wouldn't have been able to kill him so easily. At the very least, he would have had to spend a lot more time before he could finally grind his opponent to death. Although the effect of the sphere of Tartarus was very powerful, Long Yu's own power density was still limited. Even though he had grasped the forbidden technique of the ancient gods, it was still not powerful enough to deal with the enemies whose bodies were terrifyingly strong. Also, there was a fatal limitation, which was that when Long Yu used the sphere of Tartarus twice in a row, some space-time cracks appeared in his small world. Although the space-time cracks weren't big, Long Yu had a feeling that if he used the sphere of Tartarus for the 3rd time, the space-time cracks would expand rapidly. That was a very dangerous move for him. If his small world was damaged on a large scale, it would even affect the foundation of his martial arts. Even the fruit of congenital techniques might be damaged. Even though he had only used the Divine Eyes Ball of the 9 Underworlds twice, the damage done to the small dragon defense world was already similar to the scene of activating the 8 Extremities bloodline once. Cracks in space and time had appeared in many places. If he wanted to repair these space-time cracks, he would have to consume at least a first-grade heavenly crystal-grade creation item. If Long Yu used it 3 times in a row, he would probably have to absorb a supreme creation item to recover completely. It might even cause some other serious effects. On his way back, Long Yu absorbed a first-grade heavenly crystal-grade creation item and completely repaired the cracks in his small world. Moreover, he now knew that if it was a battle from now on, then unless it was absolutely necessary, it was better not to use the Divine Eye Sphere of the 9 Hells. Otherwise, it would be completely not worth it. He would only use as much power as he could to kill his opponent. The Sphere of Tartarus could only be used as a trump card by Long Yu, but I should be able to make a good improvement next. Long Yu was looking forward to the following cultivation. After he returned to the Void Galaxy, he did not exchange greetings with too many people. Instead, he immediately seized the time to enter the 9 Abyss Prison Steel and prepared to cultivate. When he raised the ancient god forbidden technique, 4 Faces Killing Prison, to the great accomplishment, he would be able to step into the 4th layer of the core space of the 9 Faces Prison Steel to explore deeper. The 9 Faces Prison Steel was a divine item, and it had an aura similar to the golden steel in the center of the 6th layer of the eroding Moon Ancient Domain. This made Long Yu guess that the 9 Abyss Prison Steel was taken from a place similar to the eroding Moon Ancient region. It was impossible for Long Yu to figure out the specific situation. In any case, the most important thing now was to improve his strength. He returned to the core space of the 9 Abyss Prison Steel and headed straight for the 4th level. In the 1st level of the core space of the 9 Abyss Prison Steel, the seal of the ancient god recorded the body of Pure World, which could strengthen the body of Pure World's ability to resist mental attacks and control methods. In the 2nd level of the core space of the 9 Abyss Prison Steel, the seal of the ancient god recorded the heart of Devil Dust, which made Long Yu's body stronger and his body reconstructed faster. As long as he was within the range of the sphere of Tartarus, it was almost impossible for the alien demigods to kill Long Yu, because when the opponent was in the state of slowed down time, his movement was 10 times slower in Long Yu's eyes. Even if he was smashed into pieces, his body could be completely reconstructed in an instant. It was definitely an extremely disgusting method. In the core space of the 3rd level of the 9 Abyss Prison Steel, the ancient god's forbidden skill, the four-aspect killing prison, was recorded. Long Yu had only succeeded in learning it after he stepped into the core space. What he had obtained previously was just the four-aspect killing prison cultivation jade slip that Geo Dragon Emperor had recorded according to the things in the core space. Just by relying on that cultivation jade slip, it was simply impossible to successfully cultivate the four symbols deathly prison. When he reached the fourth level of the 9 abyss prison steel, Long Yu felt that he had come to a dark and gloomy ghost realm. In the center of this area, there was a square stone stele floating in the air, and there were some dark green ancient words on it. Long Yu approached it alone and found that what was recorded on the stone stele was actually a cultivation secret method. This is the cultivation secret method of the demigods. Long Yu took a look and was immediately surprised. Martial arts secret methods and cultivation secret methods were two different concepts. Martial arts secret methods were methods that could enhance one's ability in a certain aspect after cultivation. For example, balance control, body of pure world, and devil dust heart were all such secret methods. Cultivation secret methods, on the other hand, were specially suitable for the demigods. Through the cultivation secret methods, the demigods could continuously compress the density of their own power, making the power inside their body more and more solid and closer to that of the gods. Right now, what appeared in front of Long Yu was a rare and precious cultivation secret method. Among the humans and demons, almost no one could teach cultivation secret methods, because every demigod had different talent attributes and power types. Only the cultivation secret method that they had comprehended themselves was the most suitable. But now, a cultivation secret method appeared in front of Long Yu, which made him a bit hesitant. He had heard from the demigod Ghost Crow that the most suitable cultivation secret method for him was to go to a special secret realm at a certain time and comprehend it through some natural powers. Did he need to cultivate the cultivation secret method in front of him? What's recorded in the 9 Hell Steel should be quite suitable for me, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to come here. Long Yu thought for a moment and realized that he had no choice but to cultivate this secret method, because the situation he was facing right now was very urgent. If he could not improve in a short period of time, when the powerful demigods of the Sword Race and the other 2 races came, he would not be able to resist at all. Apart from everything else, it would be difficult for him to defeat the experts whose power density was only 30 times higher. If the demigods who were even stronger came, the entire galaxy and even the entire human race and demon race would be in danger because of that. I have to cultivate this cultivation secret method. Long Yu quickly recognized this fact. On one hand, he urgently needed to become stronger, and he didn't have any other way to become stronger in a short period of time. On the other hand, the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet didn't only have these 4 levels. There were more. As for how strong Geo Dragon Emperor was, Long Yu did not know, but it was obvious that Geo Dragon Emperor had cultivated the cultivation secret method on the 4th level of the core space. Geo Dragon Emperor has improved his power density to at least 80 times higher through this cultivation secret method. It should be no problem for me to cultivate this secret method now. Long Yu thought to himself. When he needed to improve his strength quickly, there was no need to consider other aspects. Long Yu began to observe the cultivation secret method on the Ghost Realm stele. Originally, Long Yu did not understand the ancient characters on the stele, but he had some inheritance from Geo Dragon Emperor in his mind, so the meaning of the characters was clearly engraved in his mind. After memorizing all the ancient characters, Long Yu closed his eyes in the 4th level of the core space and began to comprehend the cultivation secret method. Although he could understand the ancient characters, it was not easy to comprehend the cultivation secret method. Luckily, he had the ability of the 9 Hell Ball, which directly dragged him into the area where the flow of time was slowed down, and he began to comprehend the cultivation secret method at a speed 10 times faster than the outside world. Chapter 1645. From the fourth floor of the core space of the Nine Hell Steel, Long Yu had acquired a secret method for demigods. After he started to understand it, he found that the secret method was called Nine Hells of Heavenly Nether. It was divided into 9 stages. After every stage, the density of his strength would be doubled. Then, he could practice the 9 stages in a cycle. However, the 9 stages of the second cycle were much more difficult than the first cycle. That is to say, I can easily reach 19 times the density of my strength by practicing this secret method. Of course, the first cycle of the 9 Hells of Heavenly Nether is not easy. It will take a long time to compress the density of my strength. Long Yu's advantage was that before the other new demigods started to practice, he had already acquired a secret method like the 9 Hells of Heavenly Nether, and his training speed was 10 times faster than other people's. In such a case, there was no need for Long Yu to go to the secret temples of gods that the demigod Ghost Crow mentioned, because he already had the secret method. Also, it seemed that only new demigods whose strength density was 10 times higher could enter the places where new demigods could learn the secret methods. If Long Yu practiced the 9 Hells of Heavenly Nether and increased the density of his strength, he wouldn't be able to go to those places. As Long Yu began to learn the 9 Hells of Heavenly Nether, he found that this secret method could not only increase the density of his strength, but it also had a special feature. After practicing the 9 Hells of Heavenly Nether, Long Yu's affinity with the divine language of darkness could exceed the limit of level 12 and reach level 13 or even higher. Correspondingly, his affinity with the primordial power of the metal class would be improved a lot. However, the side effect was that his affinity with other divine languages would be weakened. For example, the divine language of space would have a greater impact on Long Yu. Thankfully, he had the special primordial void dragon dagger, and he didn't have to learn the divine language of space on his own. Otherwise, after practicing the 9 Hells of Heavenly Nether, Long Yu's other aspects would probably be weakened a lot. However, at this moment, Long Yu began to cultivate without any worries. The Celestial Nether 9 Absolutes was definitely a very suitable cultivation method for Long Yu. Because Long Yu's 8 great innate divine skills and the ancient God Forbidden skill for aspect Deadly Hell were divine skill of the Shadow attribute. Hence, the increase of the Shadow attribute compatibility was extremely obvious to Long Yu. As for other aspects, the only martial arts that Long Yu practiced were gathering aura and fighting celestial body. However, these martial arts were not commonly used by Long Yu, and they were not powerful enough. For demigods, they could no longer have a decisive impact. Only by improving a certain aspect to the extreme would one be able to create the strongest combat power. After all, Long Yu believed in this principle. Therefore, since he used the 9 Hell Steel as the foundation for his cultivation, he needed to improve the power of the Shadow attribute to the extreme. The Netherworld 9 Absolutes was a secret cultivation method. Every time one cultivated a cycle, it would increase one's Shadow attribute divine rune compatibility by 1 level and lower the other attribute divine rune compatibility by 1 level. One could imagine what Long Yu's situation would be like if he cultivated it to the top 9 cycles. Now that he was a demigod, it was very easy for him to obtain some training resources in the territory of the human race and the demon race. Therefore, he could easily improve the compatibility of other attributes to above level 10. However, after reaching level 10, it was not so easy to improve further. Apart from the training resources, he also needed to comprehend it himself. Even in an ideal situation, Long Yu would be able to reach the 12th level of compatibility with the other divine runes. Then, when he finished cultivating the 9 cycles of the Nethersky 9 Absolutes, his compatibility with the other divine runes would only be at the 3rd level. At the same time, his compatibility with the Shadow attribute would reach level 21. This was an unimaginable level. Long Yu had no idea how strong it would make him. When his compatibility with the Shadow attribute reached level 12, all the Shadow attribute that he cast would carry a natural corrosive effect, which meant that the damage would be increased by 30 to 40%. He wondered what kind of special effects would happen when his compatibility with the shadow attribute was improved to level 13 or even higher. Long Yu was looking forward to it, but obviously he could not see any effect in a short time. After all, to cultivate the 9 extremes of the netherworld into a cycle, one had to cultivate all 9 stages at least once and raise the power density to 19 times. Even if one cultivated at 10 times the speed of time, it was still not an easy task. It was only natural that Long Yu's training was much more advanced than the demigods of the human race and the demon race. The secret method of the celestial Nether 9 absolutes alone was much more advanced than what other demigods had comprehended. The efficiency, speed, and even effect of his training were much higher. After Long Yu learned of the effects of his cultivation, he took some time to inform Red Oriole while he was cultivating. He asked her to return to the human and monster races' territories and obtain some special pills that could increase the compatibility of his other divine characters, or perhaps even materials to refine these pills. In any case, Liao Lele's current alchemy skills could be considered at the peak of the human and monster race. Naturally, Red Oriole did as she was told. Right now, she did not have the secret method of training, and it would take a long time for her to improve. She mainly needed to understand the basic modified demigod source items. However, even if she completely understood it, her combat ability would not be comparable to Long Yu's at all. It was not that Red Oriole was too weak, but that Long Yu was too strong. He was even much stronger than the newly advanced demigods of the major races, such as the Sword Race. 7 days later, Red Oriole brought a set of special pills for Long Yu, which could improve the compatibility of other attributes, such as life, space, fire, ice, berserker, element, and light. Long Yu barely used the power of the 7 attributes, but he could not let the compatibility of the 7 attributes become negative. Could he? After taking the pills, Long Yu soon improved the compatibility of the other 7 attributes to level 10. If it were before he became a demigod, it would have been extremely difficult for him to get so many training resources, and he would even have to work hard for years. But now, it was only a matter of a word. That was the difference between demigods and other cultivators. For the entire human race and the demon race, the demigods were much more important than other cultivators. Then, Long Yu began to practice the secret method of the celestial Nether 9 absolutes. He had to become stronger as quickly as possible. A month had passed in the outside world. Long Yu had been training in the area where the flow of time had slowed down for 10 months, which was almost a year. During such a long time, Long Yu had gained a lot of understanding of the cultivation of the celestial Nether 9 absolutes. The first cycle of the celestial Nether 9 absolutes had 9 stages. On average, Long Yu could cultivate 1 stage every 2 months. After 10 months, he had cultivated it to the 5th stage, and the density of his own power had reached 15 times. In other words, his power was stronger, denser, and more difficult to crack than before. If before, he could only deal with demigod experts whose power density was about 30 times, then now, he could deal with demigod experts whose power density was about 40 times. First of all, the star branding pattern could weaken the opponent's power density by 10 times. In his strongest state, Long Yu would activate the octagon bloodline and increase his power density by 8 times. In this way, he could make up for the difference of 18 times. In addition, Long Yu could rely on the ball of 9 underworlds and the death prison of 4 symbols, allowing him to defeat opponents with a strength density that was several times higher than his own. This allowed him to fight against experts with a strength density that was 40 times higher than his own. Of course, if the opponent had activated the ancient Godbrain field and had some strange ancient god stripes, it would be more difficult for Long Yu to deal with him. But if he thought of a way and created an opportunity, it was not impossible for him to defeat the opponent. At this time, another batch of uninvited guests finally came to the outside of the galaxy. This batch of uninvited guests was not large in number. But just as Long Yu had guessed, they were experts from the Sword Race, the 6-winged race, and the mechanical race. Each race had sent 3 demigods, and there were 9 demigods in total. The 3 demigod experts in the lead all had a power density that was almost 40 times higher than normal. It was either 38 or 39 times higher. Such experts already had an absolute advantage in a remote area like the territory of demons and humans. There wouldn't be any problems at all. Of course, the premise was that there were no accidents. But right now, Long Yu is the biggest accident. The sword race, the six-winged race, and the mechanical race probably didn't know that Long Yu could improve so much in such a short time, and that his power density had also increased after he obtained the secret cultivation method. When the 9 demigods of alien races arrived, someone brought the news to Long Yu. It was Shi Yingwu. She had been cultivating on the 3rd floor of the core space of the 9 Hells prison tablet. Her strength had improved a lot compared to a month ago, but there was still a gap between her and the demigod level. When she came to inform Long Yu about the arrival of the experts of the sword race, Long Yu was drinking the divine liquor. At this time, the war of annihilation of the soul race had already been settled, and the wine race had also obtained the promised benefits. They occupied about 80 galaxies in the original territory of the soul race and began to multiply. Long Yu asked the provincial governor to help him obtain the divine wine, and he was warmly welcomed by the other party. After all, the wine race was very clear that the main reason why they could defeat the soul race so quickly was that Long Yu killed the Soul King Tiangu. Otherwise, no matter how smooth the battle was, it would have taken another 1 or 2 years to end. Therefore, the wine race welcomed Long Yu very much. Although Long Yu didn't come in person, it was the same if Long Yu's women came. In the eyes of the wine race, the new batch of demigods of humans and demons should all be Long Yu's women. After all, they were so close to Long Yu. Chapter 1646. The purpose of Long Yu drinking the divine wine was, of course, to comprehend the golden flame divine power contained in his body for his own use. The golden flame divine power was a divine power with 100 times the density. Although it was impossible for Long Yu to comprehend it completely, even if he could only comprehend a part of it, it would still be an extremely tyrannical existence. For example, comprehending 1/10 of the golden flame divine power would allow him to have 10 times the density of the golden flame divine power. If he comprehended 2/10 of the golden flame divine power, he would be able to have 20 times the density of the divine power, and the initial stage of this kind of divine power should be relatively easy to comprehend. However, when Long Yu drank the divine wine and woke up a day later, he found that he still did not have the slightest understanding of the golden flame divine power. Long Yu frowned. He had a feeling that it was not because the divine wine was ineffective, nor was it because the difficulty of comprehending the golden flame divine power was too high, but because of other reasons that he could not comprehend the golden flame divine power. A bottle of divine wine increased the speed of comprehension by 100 times in one day, which is equivalent to not being able to comprehend 1% of the golden flame divine power in 3 months. If it is purely because of the difficulty, it is too difficult. Long Yu thought that although it was divine power, the initial stage should not be so difficult to comprehend. He felt the power in his body, only to find that the golden flame divine power that had originally fused into his blood vessels was actually completely hidden. He could originally feel its obvious existence, but now he had to be very careful to discover the golden flame divine power in his blood. On the contrary, there was a different kind of power that began to brew in his blood, although it had not yet been born. He could feel the dense killing intent contained in this power. This is another kind of divine power. Could it be from the 9 Hell tablet? Long Yu's heart moved. He felt that the dense power in his body was very similar to the 9 Hell tablet. If it was said that the 9 Hell tablet prevented him from comprehending the golden flame divine power, then everything made sense. Long Yu guessed that it was most likely that the 9 Hell tablet also contained some kind of divine power, and then this divine power and the golden flame divine power clashed. Just by looking at the 9 extremes of heaven nether, The degree of compatibility with the power of other divine characters would continue to decrease after cultivating it. If Long Yu comprehended the golden flame divine power, when the nine extremes of heaven nether was cultivated to a high level, the power of the golden flame divine power would also be unable to be fully displayed. Long Yu sensed the dense killing intent in his blood and realized that the nine hell tablet contained some kind of divine power. After cultivating the nine absolutes, he could only choose this kind of divine power. For the time being, Long Yu did not know what this power was called, nor did he know what kind of ability it had. However, the nine hell tablet had already planted a seed in his blood, allowing him to feel the brewing of that power. I wonder how long it will take for this power to be born. Long Yu had no clue, but he couldn't control this matter. Up until now, he still couldn't see through the nine hell prison steel. He didn't even know what existed beyond the fourth level. Not being able to comprehend the golden flame divine power made Long Yu a little disappointed. Fortunately, he had obtained the Netherski 9 absolutes, which had increased his strength by quite a bit during this period of time. The sword race, the six-winged race, and the mechanical race. The three major races have come at the same time. But luckily, there are only 9 demigods, and the strongest one only has a strength density of 39 times. It seems that they're looking down on the races in this remote area. Long Yu nodded to Shi Yingwu and narrowed his eyes. An alien demigod with 39 times the density of strength. Can Brother Dragon defeat it? The little girl's sunset dance had already grown into a slender and elegant beauty. However, in front of Long Yu, she was still used to calling him Big Brother. She was very affectionate. It's not a problem if there's only one, but there are 3. It's a bit tricky. Thinking for a moment, Long Yu said, "It's not impossible. Let's go out and take a look first. We'll make plans after we meet them." The two of them left the core space of the nine hell prison steel and went to the battle hall at the center of the galaxy. The battle hall had been built by consort used people not long ago. The entire battle hall stood at the center of the galaxy, near the entrance of the primeval relics where the demigods of the multi-winged race lived. It was also guarded by the demigod stone statue of the multi-winged race. For the galaxy, the battle hall was a place to discuss war affairs. The specific structure of the entire galaxy had been integrated, and it gradually became a regular developing force. In the battle hall, everyone had gathered together. Consort Yu, Yi Wei, the Holy Emperor, Red Oriole, Moon Song, and Ji Tao could be said to be the main part of the top forces in the entire galaxy. The others, such as Sunset Dance and the others, weren't weak either. After reaching the peak of the 7th stage sovereign realm, their strength could suppress most sovereign experts. However, there was still an insurmountable gap between them and the demigod realm. Long Yu, on the other hand, was undoubtedly the strongest among them. Even before Long Yu practiced the 9 hell exterminations, he could crush everyone in the field. Now that he had practiced the 9 hell exterminations, the density of his strength had been increased to 15 times. He was much stronger than before. Ji Tao, how much has your strength density recovered? When Long Yu arrived at the battle hall, the first thing he asked was about Ji Tao. Ji Tao had occupied the 9 Abyss Dragon Emperor's physical body, so the power density hadn't been high. However, after Long Yu had discovered the 9 Abyss Absolutes, he had imparted this cultivation technique to Ji Tao. With this cultivation technique, the power density of the 9 Abyss Dragon Emperor's physical body that Ji Tao had occupied began to recover rapidly. The original Juyo Dragon Emperor's strength density was definitely more than 80 times. He did not know how Ji Tao had recovered during this period of time. After regaining the 9 hell exterminations, the speed at which Ji Tao's strength density increased was far faster than that of ordinary cultivators. It has reached 30 times the original strength density. Ji Tao was in the form of a black dragon, so she could not transform into a human. She replied to Long Yu through her divine will. The body of the Juyo Dragon Emperor, which was 30 times the original strength density, was definitely not weak. It had even surpassed most demigods in the human race and the demon race. Even the two strongest demigods in the human race and the demon race were no match for Jitao now. Although Jitao could not perform any congenital techniques while controlling the body of the Juyo Dragon Emperor, she had already practiced the godly martial technique of gathering spiritual energy to the peak level. During this period of time, apart from recovering the strength density with the 9 hell exterminations, she had been concentrating on gathering spiritual energy. As for the 4 aspects killing prison, she did not spend much time on it because she felt that it was too difficult and she would not make any progress in a short time. In order to face the alien experts that were coming, she had to improve in a short time. Gathering spiritual energy was the best way to practice the godly martial technique. Other than the 3 alien demigod leaders whose strength density is close to 40 times, what level are the other 6 demigods? Long Yu continued asking. They are all alien demigods whose strength is just 20 times. However, their air is very intense. I'm afraid that they are no weaker than the Soul King Tiangu. I'm afraid that we can't even deal with one of them. Red Oriole shook her head, somewhat worried. It was obvious that she did not expect that the enemy would be so aggressive and strong. 9 demigods were coming. Under such circumstances, even Long Yu, who had improved his strength after practicing the 9 hell exterminations, could not resist them. If he did not take action, the barrier of the universe would be broken very soon, and it would take no more than 3 days. In that case, the universe would be in an undefended state, and the situation would be very dangerous. However, there's good news. The Heaven Fire Doyen has been studying the multi-winged race's Dharma array for a while now. Just 2 days ago, he made a breakthrough. He's preparing the Dharma array core outside the divine spirit boundary at the edge of the galaxy. Concubine, you said with a solemn expression, Long Yu, if that formation is successfully activated, it will definitely be able to trap those alien demigods and then annihilate them one by one. In that case, the pressure on us will be much easier. The Heaven Fire Doyen is outside the barrier? Long Yu's face slightly changed after hearing that. It was a very dangerous thing. That's right. After all, we are relying on the barrier. It's impossible for us to set up arrays inside the barrier, which would be useless, Consort nodded. However, he is in the opposite direction from where the demigods are coming. They probably won't find him. Even if they do, he can return to the barrier as quickly as possible. It's not a problem in terms of safety. The most important thing right now is to lure all the demigods into the array that the Heaven Fire Doyen has set up after the battle. Otherwise, it will be difficult for us to resist the attack. Moon Song analyzed. Yes. Long Yu nodded his head. He understood what the girls were trying to say. As it turned out, the Heaven Fire Doyen had already begun preparing a formation to deal with the enemy. He had set up a trapping formation outside of the galaxy. As long as the demigods were lured into the formation, they would be trapped. Long Yu did not know the specifics, but it should not be a problem. Although a lot of the primeval relics of the multi-winged race have been destroyed because of the sandstorm, a lot of information about the civilization of the multi-winged race could still be found from the remaining sandstorms. The Heaven Fire Doyen must have analyzed the structure of a powerful array that was even powerful enough to trap many demigods. It was undoubtedly good news for Long Yu. Let's go. They can't break the barrier for now. Let's go to the Heaven Fire Doyen and take a look first. We must be fully prepared to ensure the success of the battle plan. Long Yu nodded his head and led the crowd out of the battle hall. Chapter 1647. Long Yu and the others hurried to where the Heaven Fire Doyen was at. He had received news that the Heaven Fire Doyen was not acting alone. Instead, he was setting up a trapping array called Heaven Imprisoning Wings with his 2 disciples, namely Qin Yashuang and Zisu. Qin Yashuang and Zisu were women that Long Yu had met in the holy city of the 5 emperors in the divine battle world. They had followed him all the way until now. Later, they became the disciples of the Heaven Fire Doyen and learned the methods of refining and arrays from him. After such a long time, the 2 girls had considerable attainments in the aspects of blacksmithing and magic arrays. After all, Heaven Fire Doyen had only accepted the two girls as his disciples because he saw that they were talented. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wasted his time to teach them anything. The Heaven Imprisoning Wings is a magic array that I learned from the ancient relics of the multi-winged race. It seems to contain the power of many demigods and is enough to trap demigods. However, I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know how effective it is. Consort, you said to Longyu. Yes, let's go and take a look. We'll be able to speculate the power of the magic array. Longyu nodded. He was not worried. After all, as long as the magic array was completed, he would have to take a look at the magic array of the Heaven Imprisoning Wings before he took action to lure the alien demigods over. He had to estimate and confirm what kind of power the magic array had. Very soon, the group of demigods arrived near the Heaven Fire Doyen. After passing through the God Spirit barrier, they came to the void outside the galaxy. From afar, they could see that the Heaven Fire Doyen was setting up an invisible magic array in the void with Qin Yashuang and Zisu. When the entire magic array was being set up, the power of various divine characters was transmitted. It was the power of the Yellow Sand divine characters similar to that of the multi-winged race. However, once the magic array was set up, the entire magic array would be hidden and would not be seen by others. The method of concealment was to completely disappear into the gaps of the surrounding space. Even Long, you could not sense its existence through the secret martial arts technique that he had mastered evenly. It was the best way to use it as a trap. Senior, what's the situation now? How long will it take to complete this magic array? Longyu flew forward and asked. The Heaven Fire Doyen did not say anything, but Zisu came close and observed Longyu in surprise. I told you that you have advanced into the demigod level, but I haven't seen you yet. Today, I finally see you. It's not easy. Hee hee. This Sky Imprisoning Wings array was acquired from the primeval relics of the multi-winged clan. It should be able to trap demigods. It will be completed in about 6 hours. Thank you for your hard work. Longyu nodded with a smile, then asked, You too, have you learned any weapon forging techniques from Senior? What level of weapons can you forge now? In your eyes, the battle weapons we forge aren't even worth mentioning. That said, other cultivators from the Void Star River often come to us to forge battle weapons. Most of them are ancient-grade battle weapons. If the materials are good enough, we can even forge an Archean battle weapon. But we can't forge an unbounded battle weapon. There are some critical aspects that we haven't figured out yet. Qin Yashuang came over and said in a gentle voice. She was completely filled with reverence towards Longyu. In the past, it was still okay, but now, Longyu in front of her had a kind of high and mighty feeling, causing her to feel somewhat unfamiliar. After all, it has been a long time since she last saw him. However, Longyu did not show any disdain or arrogance towards the two women. Instead, he showed them the same care and love they had in the past. And just continue to work hard. Refining weapons is not that easy. Senior Heavenly Fire has researched for hundreds of years before he was able to reach his current level. It's not that this old man is boasting, but with this old man's help, these two little girls will be able to reach this old man's level of refining weapons in a few years. The Heaven Fire Doyen chuckled, then turned around and said, After all, their martial arts realm has improved much faster than mine. It took me 200 years to raise my cultivation to the Great Sovereign Realm, but they are already 5th stage Great Sovereigns. It won't be long before they reach the 7th stage Great Sovereign Realm. It's all thanks to Master's guidance. The two girls bowed respectfully. Don't be so polite in front of me. There are still some details of the Heaven Imprisoning Wings array that need to be settled. We have to complete it quickly. The Heaven Fire Doyen waved his hand at Longyu and continued to set up the array with the two girls. If one wanted to set up some array that was beyond one's ability, for example, the Heaven Imprisoning Wings array, that Heaven Fire Doyen was currently in this category, then the array master would need some array stones. These array stones were created by exhausting their power. Then, the demigod experts would inject their own power into them. For example, in order to set up the Heaven Imprisoning Wings array formation, Doyen Heavenfire had gotten Concubine Yu and company to prepare a total of 88 array stones, which were created by Concubine Yu and company injecting their own powers into the array formation. Other than being used to set up the array formation, these array stones had no other use. Then, according to the principle of the transformation of the 5 elements at the beginning, all the power in the array stones would be transformed into the type of power that the array needed. It would be weakened during the transformation, but the effect would not be too great. The 88 array stones had all been thrown into the array and hidden in the void. They turned into the purest power of the 5 elements at the beginning and kept transforming into the yellow, sand divine characters. No one knew the specific principle of such a transformation method. The Heavenfire Doyen had only comprehended a transformation method from the remains of the sandstorm in the ancient relic of the multi-winged race. He only knew how to use it, but he could not explain the principle. Even so, it was already very impressive. If it were Long Yu, it would be impossible for him to do this. It would be better for Long Yu to fight than to study such a thing. Before they knew it, the entire Heaven Imprisoning Wings array had taken shape. Countless silhouettes of yellow sand wings were faintly discernible in the air. It was as if there were many demigods of the multi-winged race roaming and flickering in the air. These wings contained a mysterious and powerful power, causing Long Yu to feel a little shocked. The Heaven Imprisoning Wings array was not simple. According to his preliminary estimation, as long as the demigods did not have a power density of 40 times, they would be completely trapped in the array of the Heaven Imprisoning Wings array. It would take at least 15 minutes to break out of the confinement of the Heaven Imprisoning Wings array. It was needless to mention the demigods who had a power density of 20 times. It would be almost impossible for them to get out after they were trapped. The sword race, the mechanical race, and the 6-winged race would never have thought that they could set up such a peak-level array as the Heaven Imprisoning Wings. As long as they absorbed the array stones condensed by some demigods, they would be able to trap even more powerful demigods. Although the multi-winged race was an extinct race, their understanding of the power of the 5 elements at the beginning and the power of the demigod level far exceeded that of the human race and the demon race. The Heavenfire Doyen could already decipher a lot of useful knowledge from the primeval relic of the multi-winged race. It would just take more time. The Heaven Imprisoning Wings array was just one of them. It's finally done. Everyone, the array is now hidden. The rest is up to you. 6 hours later, the Heavenfire Doyen threw yellow sandstone to Long Yu. This is array stone. After all of them are attracted here, as long as you crush this array stone, you'll be able to activate the Heaven Imprisoning Wings and trap all the demigods of the alien races inside. Every demigod trapped inside is separated. If you want to break the confinement of the array, you can only rely on their own strength. So, after they're trapped, you can choose to let one of them out first and defeat them one by one. However, I heard that the demigods of the alien races this time are ferocious. You must be careful. Okay, thank you, Senior. Long Yu took the yellow sandstone and felt the power inside it. It was connected to the entire array, so he put away with ease. Right now, everyone in the galaxy was united and working hard to repel all the invading enemies. The Heavenfire Doyen had also done his best. It was definitely not easy to find a way to trap so many powerful demigods of the alien races. Although Long Yu hadn't really fulfilled his promise to the Heavenfire Doyen, which was to help him become a demigod, the Heavenfire Doyen had indeed protected the galaxy as his home. It was absolutely impossible to break into the demigod level without enough talent. The Heavenfire Doyen knew that himself. So, even though so many new demigods had appeared in the entire galaxy, he didn't feel that he had been neglected. After all, his greatest enemy, Chi Bei Fei, had been killed by Long Yu in the eroding moon ancient region. Apart from Long Yu himself, only the Heavenfire Doyen knew the news. It was enough for him to know that the revenge had been taken. That was enough for him to work for the galaxy wholeheartedly. The Heaven Imprisoning Wings array was set up. Everybody immediately spread out and got ready to take action. It was rather difficult to lure the demigods of the alien races. The main thing was to make them all come to the range of the heaven imprisoning wings, which was not easy. Even though the range of the heaven imprisoning wings array was 3,000 square kilometers, even long, you couldn't guarantee that all the enemies would come to him. I need to use something to lure them, thinking to himself. Long Yu began to think about the mentality of the demigods of the sword race, and see if there was anything that could help him make a breakthrough. After thinking for a while, he already had an idea. Then, he directly flew in the direction of the 9 demigods of the alien races. The others all stayed in the galaxy and were not allowed to leave. Otherwise, they would definitely be killed if they encountered the demigods. As for Long Yu, although he couldn't deal with so many of them, he could still escape. The barrier at the edge of the galaxy was already shaking under the bombardment. At this moment, Long Yu finally rushed out. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.